the full-time mage. The extreme lightning. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 351 Rescue. Inside Kakaka City. When we arrived here, this place was no longer a place with an epidemic spreading and people weak and dying. Instead, it had turned into a large battlefield. The military mages had already organized a camp outside the city and surrounded the city. No matter if they were human or ghost, as long as they showed their heads, they would be bombarded with fierce magic. Zao Manan said that Mo-fan was disconnected before he finished speaking, which was probably related to the current situation. Looking at the scene here, Zao Manan said, a little depressed, "Tang Maro, do you think that idiot Mo-fan will be outside, or?" As he said that, he looked into the city. At this time, the city here was already in a state of ruin. Why ask? That idiot's communication equipment is not working. Where do you think he is? Tang Maro rolled his eyes at Zao Manan and shrugged. Then should we go in? Zao Manan was a little timid, as if waiting for Tang Maro to give him encouragement. I won't go in. Okay. Zao Manan paused after hearing what Tang Maro said. Seeing his expression, Tang Maro knew that he wanted to go in to save people. Although he was a bit afraid of death, he was still willing to make sacrifices for the brothers he recognized. Brother, it's time now. Can you stop joking? Tang Maro didn't waste any words, waved his hand, and walked towards the city. Although Zao Manan said cowardly, he followed him when he saw him leading the way. Just as Tang Maro bypassed the army and led Zao Manan to the city, the beads in his hand began to glow. As soon as he stepped into the city, he saw several dark red evil spirits on their bodies. They looked extremely scary and swayed like zombies and approached them. Fuck. Seeing this scene, Zao Manan couldn't help but exclaimed, "Thunder! Yaksha!" Tang Maro acted decisively, and a burst of thunder fell from the sky and hit these strange zombies directly. With a burst of thunder, it smashed it into pieces. Although he knew that some of these monsters were human, would he put himself in danger to save their lives? Although he was not an unforgivable villain, he was not a good person at all. It is not impossible to save the dying and the wounded, but the premise is to ensure your own safety. Otherwise, everything is out of the question. Looking at the zombies killed by him, the bead trembled. Then, it began to absorb the breath of the bead. I saw that the bead began to absorb the breath of these zombies like the killing jade. When these breaths were absorbed, I saw that the bead glowed slightly. After these breaths were absorbed, the zombies gradually turned back to their original human appearance. Looking at the human beings in front of him who were already cold, Zao Manan felt a little uncomfortable. Although he was not a savior, he was somewhat unable to cope with the tragedy in front of him. "If I don't kill them, we will die," Tang Maro reminded Zao Manan in a calm voice. After hearing what Tang Maro said, Zao Manan's kindness was instantly forgotten. For young Master Zao, it was exactly the same as Tang Maro's. He could punish evil and promote good, or he could save the world, but the premise was that he could not die. The two hit it off and began to charge in. Zao Manan protected them all the way, while Tang Maro went all out. Soon, the two felt the strong aura of elemental magic. Looking at the bursts of magic energy not far away, Zao Manan said, "Tang Maro, look to the north." Tang Maro nodded, glanced at the increasing number of zombies nearby, and replied, "I knew it a long time ago, but can't you see what's happening in front of you?" Although Tang Maro's destruction magic was enough to kill a lot of zombies here, but all the magic energy was consumed by half in this killing. And how many zombies there were in this city, no one knew. It was impossible for Tang Maro to kill them directly. If I guessed correctly, there must be a little red devil where Mo-fan was. And its existence must also have a lot of zombies. After all, they are its endless energy and life-saving place. Therefore, he must retain his magic energy, otherwise, he will not know how he died in the end. "I'll take you to fly over." After being scolded by Tang Maro, Zao Manan suddenly unfolded his winged magic tool. Then he took Tang Maro directly into the air. Don't say it, this wave of operations made Tang Maro stunned. He forgot that this thief next to him was full of treasures. The two took off, and the zombies had no other way to attack except for the crazy roar. When they rushed to Emofan, they saw that in addition to him, there were Yi Xingxia, Zhang Xiaohao and the woman wearing the Parthenon decoration. At this time, the four people were extremely embarrassed. It seemed that except for Emofan, the other three had exhausted their magic energy. After he crushed the Red Devil once again, he fainted when he saw Tang Mao and the others rushing over. Seeing Tang Mao, Xingxia, who was no longer in a wheelchair due to her mobility problems, had a complex mood in her eyes. However, since the current predicament was caused by her, she could only say, the leading monster is immortal. Then she looked at Zhao Manan and asked expectantly, can you take them out? When Zhao Manan was about to speak, Tang Mao interrupted, what kind of immortal monster is there in the world? If it really exists, then what is the use of humans? Although she was very grateful for Tang Mao's rescue, when she thought about what happened in Egypt, Xingxia felt that this man was deliberately causing trouble for her. She said with some dissatisfaction, do you think I'm kidding? Want to make a bet? He was not angry about this, but looked at this big girl with unchanged legs and feet with a playful look on his face. Yi Xingxia is not Zhao Manan. Although she doesn't believe that Tang Mao can solve this Red Devil, she really doesn't dare to gamble and can't afford to lose. Exclamation mark. After all, this man is not polite at all. In the end, she just snorted in dissatisfaction. At this time, Zhang Xiaohao said, Brother Tang, this Red Devil is really immortal. Brother Fan has broken him many times. But until now, he still hasn't died, and he is getting stronger and stronger. In response, Tang Mao did not respond, but directly began to absorb the power of the Red Devil with the beads. P.S. There is no more tonight. Everyone go to bed early. Chapter 352. Holy Mother. As Tang Mao's beads were absorbed, the scattered Red Devils seemed to panic. Then, the zombies next to him rushed forward without hesitation. Thunder Domain. Tang Mao was naturally not afraid of these zombies who were desperate, but not very powerful. The moment the Thunder Domain was formed, thunders kept falling around. One after another, lightning chains fell from the sky, which looked extremely scary. Zizla. Zizla. One after another, the chains of electricity appeared and disappeared. When the zombies approached, they were blasted, and a layer of skin was torn off one by one. And wrapped in this layer of skin were people one after another. Even if it was just the thunder in the domain, it was still not comparable to these zombies. After all, his Thunder Domain at the beginning had the power of the middle level. And now, after swallowing the Tyrant Wild Thunder, it not only increased its power, but most importantly, it became denser. Especially the longer a person or monster stays in the Thunder Domain, the more bombardment they receive. As for the maximum multiple, Tang Mao was not clear. When the Thunder Domain exploded with power, the zombies continued to rush forward fearlessly. Although the domain was already densely packed with electric chains, there were still gaps under the impact of countless zombies. Fortunately, Zhao Manan was not a useless person, and released protections one after another. This gave Tang Mao a chance to clean up. Eyeing at this moment, little Yanji also ran out. The sea of fire spread out, and the zombies immediately turned into ashes. With the appearance of Yanji, Zhao Manan, who was a little panicked just now, was completely confident at this moment. I forgot that your little girl had woken up a long time ago. I thought it was over. Zhao Manan said in a calm voice with a slight sigh of relief. The next moment Yanji appeared. The dimensional door opened again. I saw Zhao Hei, who had not been seen for a long time, rushing out. His huge body was full of oppression. As soon as he appeared, he rolled over and dealt a large wave of damage to the zombies around Tang Mao and others. When the power was absorbed into Tang Mao's beads, a large number of zombies gathered here. They actually belonged to the Red Devil. After all, it was he who emitted these evil spirits. And there were at least more than 100,000 people in this city. Even if there were survivors, how many could there be? Therefore, even though Tang Mao killed a lot of them along the way, the zombies still felt endless. Tang Mao was really a little overwhelmed by the terrifying power of the evil spirit spreading. Exclamation mark. These things can't be killed. We have to find a way to leave. Tang Mao turned around and looked at Zhao Manan. Although he said find a way, what he actually meant was self-evident. Zao Manan said, although my winged magic tool is very advanced, if I want to fly out of the city, I can only take one person with me. After hearing what he said, the few people who thought that the Red Devil was dead and had hope of survival, at this moment, they really felt despair. Yi Xingxia, who had just watched these innocent people sacrifice in vain, no longer had any overflowing emotions of saintly heart. Damn Tang Mao, do you have a way to absorb these evil spirits? At this time, she recovered some magic power. After seeing Tang Mao being able to deal with the Red Devil, she actually had some doubts in her heart. However, when she saw that it was an ordinary person just now, she was full of sympathy and did not think about whether Tang Mao could absorb these evil thoughts. But now, she wanted to confirm what she thought. If it was true, then not only could they be saved, but also the people here could be cured. Yes. Tang Mao nodded and responded, why, you don't want to use your current magic power to forcibly absorb a wave of evil thoughts to save people? Yi Xingxia looked at Tang Mao in disbelief. How do you know? I know a lot of things, but your spirit of selflessness really makes me sick. Tang Mao pouted and said ruthlessly, and then said, but since you have decided, then let's get started. With her leading the way, Tang Mao can be said to be able to obtain a large amount of energy effortless. Just with the previous batch plus a Red Devil, Tang Mao has already obtained nearly half of the energy required for the bead. If the remaining tens of thousands of evil thoughts are forcibly absorbed, the energy in the bead is estimated to be enough for him to demonize twice. Although demonization cannot be put on the magic table, doesn't it vary from person to person? He is not those test subjects, and the demon system is already perfectly controlled. Seeing Yi Xingxia ready to start, Tang Mao kindly reminded her, I advise you to do it within your ability. Even if you risk your life for them, the glory you get is only for the Parthenon and has nothing to do with you. Yi Xingxia didn't care and wanted to stand up, but finally gave up. She could stand up, but it was only for a moment. Helplessly, she had to cross her hands and put them on her chest. The ripples of her mind were invisible, but Tang Mao knew that this silly woman had already started. Because the evil spirits of a large number of zombies nearby had begun to be drawn away, then they were slowly merged into the beads. Looking at those people who fell down one by one without the evil spirits, Zao Manan, Zhang Xiaohao and an assistant brought by Yi Xingxia were all secretly surprised. How strong is this mental magic? Question mark? It can actually lead so much evil spirit to Tang Mao? What's even more perverted is that Tang Mao, the gas that infects people's hearts, has no influence on him at all. When the bead absorbed 3/5 of the energy, Yi Xingxia felt like she was going to faint, but this girl actually persisted. The zombies that rushed here were originally a wisp of a mature evil spirit. The little Red Devil is dead, so whether it is killed or not, the disaster is actually over. The only difference is whether these humans possessed by evil spirits are alive or dead. After watching the energy in the bead continue to grow, Tang Mao glanced at Yi Xingxia again. The latter's face was pale, without the slightest rosy breath. If she didn't have a special power in her body, she would have died long ago. But if it continued like this, although the people in this city could be saved, Yi Xingxia would definitely die in a foreign land. Chapter 353 Promotion. After all, they were acquaintances. Tang Mao said he couldn't bear to see her die in vain. Of course, he definitely didn't feel sympathy for the girl, just because she was close to Yi. Enough. Tang Mao tried to stop her, but Yi Xingxia still ignored him, so he slapped her and she fainted. While knocking Yi Xingxia unconscious, Tang Mao picked her up. He then looked at Zao Manan behind him and said, take Mo Fan with you, let's go. As soon as he finished speaking, he led the way. Although there were still tens of thousands of zombies here, with his turret, it really wasn't a big deal. When they reached the outside of the city, Tang Mao's beads had stored enough energy for the second demonization. Of course, the price was also extremely high. After killing tens of thousands of zombies, his magic power in all systems was almost exhausted until there was only a little bit left. Zao Manan, Zhang Xiaohao, and the Parthenon people who came with Yi Xingxia were all completely stunned by Tang Mao's full firepower. Although the strength of these zombies is only at the slave level, there are tens of thousands of them. They are not in one place, but they were killed all along the way. Question mark? When they came out, the military magician guarding here was about to attack, and Zaomanan hurriedly took off to show his identity. Knowing that the crisis in this city has been resolved, although many people have been sacrificed, more than half of them have been saved. The chief here did not believe it at first. After all, Tangmao and his friends are too young. They saved most of the people here. How did they do it when there are endless demons? Question mark. He ignored their doubts and took his people away. Zaomanan and Zhang Xiaohao wanted to say something, but Tangmao had left, so they naturally had nothing to say. The chief here was also a little suspicious about this, so he organized a team of elites and rushed into the city. Half an hour later, the rescue began. One day later, Yi Xingxia was a little angry when she woke up. Tangmao ignored her anger. After all, the Lame sister had no other way to annoy him except to stare blankly. So, why should Tangmao care? What do you think of human life? Yi Xingxia knew that her anger was useless, but she couldn't help but questioned with anger. Why? I'm wrong not to let you sacrifice your life for justice. What's wrong with me? It's my business. Who are you to make a decision for me? Do you know that there are tens of thousands of lives at stake? Yi Xingxia naturally understood that Tangmao was trying to save her, but she had the opportunity to save so many lives, but it was because of this damn man that she didn't even have to think about it. The fate of these people was almost a decisive result. Then I'll tell you one thing. I can absorb those evil spirits if I want to, and I won't absorb them if I don't want to. You want to sacrifice your life to be the savior, but I don't want to risk my own life. After the second energy recharge, he discovered that the bead could no longer absorb anything. Even if it still sparkles, it can only be seen if there is any supplement. Of course, when Yi Xingxia cast the spell, the bead was not full, and Tangmao was not aware of this. It was only after he broke out of the siege and killed everyone that he understood this. Yi Xingxia was quite angry at first, but after hearing what Tangmao said, she realized that she was somewhat unreasonable. Yes. Who can stand such a terrifying evil spirit? Tangmao is strong. He is also a person. For a while, the two were silent. At this time, Zaomanan walked in. After seeing that Yi Xingxia had woken up, he asked, "Are you okay?" She nodded and said, "I'm fine. How is brother Emofan?" He is thick-skinned and naturally fine, but he consumed too much magic energy and is still sleeping. Zaomanan responded, then looked at Tangmao and said, "All the people in this city have been rescued. As for some people nearby, they are not so lucky." Zaomanan was not injured, and his magic consumption was not great. After all, Tangmao had led the way, so he went to inquire about the situation here early in the morning. And without any surprise, the officers here chose the same approach as Tangmao. There was no way he could no longer absorb these evil spirits. Although the zombies did not continue to spread, they have been surviving like this. Who knows if new red devils will appear? Tangmao was not surprised. Sometimes, some people need to be abandoned after all. There is no way this is reality. Xingxia was shocked. After all, in her opinion, there must be other ways to treat these people. You know, this is not dozens or hundreds of people, but tens of thousands of people. Tangmao did not persuade her anymore. For such a matter, everyone has their own opinion. And the woman in front of him has a kind heart to save the dying and the wounded, so she is afraid that she will not be able to think about it for a while. After resting for half a day, Tangmao had recovered all his magic power. Then he left here without waiting for Emofan to wake up. As for the task that Parthenon gave Yi Xingxia this time, it was also successfully completed. After all, the source has been eradicated, and the casualties are already a blessing in disguise. Of course, after waking up, Emofan also persuaded her, after learning about these things, which made her accept this reality. Then the three of them hurried back to Venice, accompanied by Zhang Xiaohao. He is now doing well in the army. It is a rare holiday, but before he could enjoy it, he was pitted by Emofan to do hard labor. Emofan naturally needs to take him to watch a national government game. Of course, these are not what Tangmao cares about. After returning to Venice, he closed his eyes again. This time, the magic energy of each system was exhausted. After the thunder and ice systems broke through the high-level second level, the space system also showed signs of a breakthrough. There are still 7 or 8 days before the treasure hunt, and Tang Mao thinks he can try to make a breakthrough. Once the space system reaches the high level second level, plus the Snow Girl, the Flame Princess and the Shadow Magic Tiger, even if he encounters a monarch level demon, he will have the strength to fight. Within the high level, it can almost achieve a perfect crushing existence. 7 days passed in a flash. This kind of closed door training may not be effective, but meditation and breakthrough can really play a big role. On the morning of the 8th day, he was sublimated. The space system successfully broke through to the advanced level 2! Exclamation mark. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 354 Treasure Hunt. Tang Mao felt refreshed throughout the morning. Today, it was a treasure hunt that Tang Mao had been looking forward to for a long time. They had been training for nearly a year, but the resources they got were not very many. This was a world competition, so how could the members of the national government not have huge resources to support them? Every country actually invested, and these resources were also stored in the resource pool. The resources here were used in the treasure hunt. Just when Tang Mao came to the gathering place, where the team members were, he got a heavy news on radio news on the way. It is said that the International Dark Master Essendel was found guilty, and the Holy Court will execute the arrest and killing without retrial. The Dark Master, it is conceivable that the opponent's strength must be top-notch. But I didn't expect that this level of existence would do things without thinking. Tang Mao thought that the treasure hunt would probably be postponed, but he still arrived. As expected, the team members were also discussing these things. Without any surprise, the incident of Essendel did affect the World Academy competition. In order not to open on the day when Essendel was convicted, the World Academy competition was postponed for 2 days. Because of the postponement of the treasure hunt, Jiang Shaoxu directly pestered Tang Mao and said in a delicate voice, "Damn it, what have you been doing these days? Isn't it to snatch a large amount of resources in the treasure hunt, and you are in seclusion?" Tang Mao shrugged and responded, "Really?" Jiang Shaoxu stared at Tang Mao suspiciously and seemed to be very unconvinced by what he said. Hearing this, Tang Mao not only did not have any negative emotions, but also laughed. "What are you laughing at?" Being stared at like this, Giant Tizzy couldn't help but feel a little uncomfortable. The next moment, she was picked up, and then a burst of silver light lit up. When she opened her eyes, she had already arrived at a swimming pool. There was no way, there was no grove in Venice. Even if there was, he couldn't find it. Jiang Shaoxu was usually arrogant without limit, but today she was smart and cowardly. Looking at Tang Mao, she said weakly, "Husband, I'm still young." In response, Tang Mao was very upset and pinched Jiang Shaoxu's little face and said, "You didn't say that when you were on top of me." Jiang Shaoxu thought to herself, "How can it be the same? That's not something that can be done in a day or two. Anyway, without 2 days of mutual loss, she won't have the chance to show off her power." This dogman took her away directly today, obviously full of confidence. "He wants to call me dad again." Moreover, she won't have the chance to retaliate after that. After all, in 2 days, it will be the treasure hunt. Just when she was still thinking about how to deal with it, her little feet had left the ground. The whole person inexplicably rose into the air. Since that day, until the day of the treasure hunt, Jiang Shaoxu has not left the house. Everyone was a little suspicious about this. After all, she has never been a quiet person. But, why did she stay at home for the past 2 days? Facing everyone's doubts, a blush appeared on Jiang Shaoxu's charming cheeks. I couldn't help but ask, "What are you looking at me for?" "Jiang Shaoxu, are you sick?" Nanju, the vice captain of the same female comrade, asked. She also knew clearly that this little hoof was never quiet. No matter where she went, this kind of closed door practice was really the first time. "I have been practicing meditation these days." Jiang Shaoxu was helpless. These people were simply too concerned, right? Nanju said oh, and after knowing that she was fine, she didn't ask anything. Others were just curious. After all, in a team competition, a mind mage can play a big role. Especially Jiang Shaoxu's mind magic ability, which is definitely the best among his peers in the world. Tang Mao stared at Jiang Hoof with a smile and blinked. It seemed to say, "You will be spanked if you lie, my dear daughter." Anyway, he didn't say anything, but in Jiang Shaoxu's opinion, it was absolutely true. But facing this well-recovered dead bull, she still felt a little weak in the legs. After a light hum sound, Jiang Shaoxu distanced himself from Tang Mao. Because, the day before yesterday, this bastard told her that he wanted to experience something exciting. That is, to be conjoined, twins in the treasure hunt! Exclamation mark. Jiang Shaoxu started to curse at the time. However, in the end, she was still scared. As for the reasons, there are naturally many, but I won't go into details. So, today, Jiang Shaoxu didn't mean to pester Tang Mao at all. After all, her father will also watch the competition here in the future. If she is discovered, won't her beautiful legs be broken? It's scary to think about it. Seeing this, Tang Mao was slightly relieved. He was just afraid that this little slut would pester him in the treasure hunt, so he had to fight with his old waist the day before yesterday, and made her obedient. Of course, Jiang Shaoxu's recovery speed is still very fast. In just one day, he seemed to be fine. And him? Let alone now, if you want to be so terrifying again, it will take at least half a month. Think about how I bullied the little fox the day before yesterday. In the past half month, I must not provoke her. Otherwise, if this bitch gets the chance and doesn't squeeze him dry, there will be ghosts. The gathering place for the treasure hunt is still in the original opening venue. In addition to the 16 countries that were eliminated, the treasure hunt will be held simultaneously by the remaining 16 powerful countries in Venice. And in front of me, unlike the previous venue layout, there are many magic stones with silver luster in the venue today. The silver magic stones are arranged in a long array. People with space system are the first to notice the space array here. There are generally two types of space magic arrays. One is the instantaneous transmission of random space. When I went to witness the Black Dragon with Asheruaya before, Asheruaya arranged a random space gate without a very clear space landing point. And this other is a designated space gate, which will move people to the set place instantly. Space mages have long proposed placing space magic circles in major cities around the world, so that everyone can travel to and from these distant cities in a matter of seconds. However, this is actually an unrealistic concept. The farther the space transfer, the more energy is consumed. In this world of scarce resources and competition for monsters and demons, the resources consumed to transfer a passenger through space are absolutely terrifying. Chapter 355. Seize the treasure. Seize the treasure. The magic competition of the young generation, the world government competition, can use the space magic array to send students to the designated place. You can imagine how much attention this competition has received. At this time, the referee stood up and read out in standard international language, "I will announce the rules. The 160 students from the 16 countries will enter the treasure hunting space in a disordered order. Each of you will land in a different place. As for what you can get, it is your own chance. However, I need to remind you that the place chosen for this competition is a dangerous place with demons. When you search for the treasures we place there, you also need to be extra careful. If there is any danger, use the space scroll that will be distributed to you later. When you find that your life is in danger, fill the entire scroll with magic energy as soon as possible. The scroll will start in about 4 seconds, generating a space vortex to send you back here. I hope everyone can return safely." After the referee finished speaking, everyone started talking to each other in twas and threes. Tang Mao didn't care about it at all. It's not like he hasn't been to places with harsh environments. As for the demons everywhere, as a demon hunter, he doesn't panic at all. In short, as long as there is benefit, everything is fine. Tang Mao, who is a space mage, didn't feel much when he entered the formation. In the blink of an eye, the stadium in front of him disappeared, and he couldn't see the sky of Venice, let alone the huge crowds of spectators. The grey and turbid sky twisted strangely, looking like a huge dark oil painting printed on the top of his head, with a bit of unreality. The earth was rugged and undulating, with inexplicably towering peaks, a black forest in front, and a river vein flowing against the current. However, even though there were mountains, water, and sky here, he was still very clear that this was just an independent space. After all, it was very different from the visual coherence of real nature. At this moment, a big eagle hovered in the air. This is a demon called Pupil Eagle, and it is also a demon tool widely used by the military. It is similar to the evil eye bronze mirror. It can transmit everything that Pupil Eagle sees through light magic, present it on the instrument, and turn it into a picture. Without paying too much attention, after patrolling around, Tang Mao's mouth corners slightly raised, because it seems that no one else has come here. Immediately, he directly opened the dimensional door and summoned Zhao Hei and his group of miscellaneous subordinates. Go, my dear son, order your little brothers to search for all the valuables for dad. He naturally would not choose to do this kind of laborious thing himself. As a big boss, how can there be no errands? Roar. Zhao Hei roared with some dissatisfaction. After all, he thought that he was called out to fight, but he didn't expect that he was here to do hard labor? Zilla. Zilla. Just when Zhao Hei was dissatisfied, waves of thunder exploded in Tang Mao's hands. Seeing this, Zhao Hei left without saying a word. Speaking of which, there is nothing wrong with hard labor, right? At least it's much better than being a sandbag. After sending his brothers to search, Tang Mao found a big tree, jumped up, and lay on it. Although several instructors specifically explained that after entering here, they must meet up with other team members as soon as possible, so that they can maximize the competition for treasures. The treasures placed here by the competition party are unlikely to be thrown on the ground or something. But in a world where the strong prey on the weak, it doesn't exist. After they have found almost everything, wouldn't it be easier to grab a wave? Although they will be remembered, but in front of money, how can Tang Mao care about the other party's hatred? Moreover, this treasure hunt is not just about grabbing treasures, but also about the competition between students. There is nothing in the rules of the game that says that you can't grab treasures from other countries. Tang Mao never breaks the rules, especially the rules he likes. At this time, the audience outside, after seeing this scene through Tangying, were all dumbfounded. In this place, where there are treasures everywhere, this guy actually lies down. Well, although he also summoned the beasts to search for treasures, what can the beasts find? After all, among them, only the shadow demon tiger is the leader. Moreover, it seems that it is not the top one among the leaders, right? Of course, when the shadow energy is bursting, Zhao Hei's strength is still not weak. However, under normal circumstances, its strength is not strong. After all, its bloodline is still several steps away from the white tiger. Therefore, if you only rely on the beasts, it will not only cost a lot, but also not get a good return at all. Isn't this a waste of time? What is this kid doing? Feng Li, didn't you explain it well before the treasure hunt started? Pang Lei saw this, and widened his eyes. This is really a dog day. Feng Li almost jumped up and cursed. How could Tang Mao's behavior be his fault? Just before the start, he had specially instructed him. Okay. Looking at Feng Li with a sullen face, Pang Lei actually understood a little. This may have nothing to do with Feng Li at all. It was Tang Mao's own fault for not listening to orders. Fortunately, Hanji was here, and he said at the right time, this kid, most likely he is not going to find any resources, nor does he have the intention to find teammates. Doesn't he lack resources? Pang Lei was a little puzzled, and said, I heard Jiang Yu say that this kid values money as his life. Did he tell me nonsense? Feng Li was actually very curious. Normally, Tang Mao should be the most excited at this time. Why is he lying there to rest now? Hanji smiled and said meaningfully, you seem to have not figured out something. This is a treasure grabbing competition, not a treasure hunting competition. The two were not young boys who knew nothing. They were old foxes. They understood immediately after hearing what Hanji said. Moreover, the more they thought about it, the more they felt it made sense. Although this is a normal operation, it is too much to wait for it to be snatched right away, right? In the audience seats of R, the old woman looked at Tangmao there, curled her lips, and said with disdain, "This kid is really not a good thing. He just wants to get something for nothing." Mochizuki Chiksen, who was standing aside, was instantly unhappy when she heard this. Looking at her, she said, "Teacher Zinzi, there are no rules in this treasure hunt. You cannot rob others of their things. This is not a reward, but an alternative competition. PS, I also want to update more, but the conditions do not allow it." Chapter 356, Getting Something for Nothing, So Good. The old woman was somewhat puzzled by Mochizuki Chiksen's criticism of her, but thinking about it carefully, there was nothing wrong with what he said. In the end, she could only sigh unwillingly. There was no way. Her vocabulary was not very strong, and although Mochizuki Chiksen was young, his strength had surpassed her. Coupled with the strength of the Mochizuki family, what could she do? She could only endure it. In this world, not everyone is not afraid of power. After all, most fools die early. Of course, it is different with the halo. At this time, Tangmao had a comfortable sleep. The beasts almost turned the place upside down and fought with some monsters during the period. However, even if it was not the night, its combat power was also in the upper middle level among many monsters. With the cooperation of the beasts, almost all the weaker commanders nearby were easily knocked down. When he woke up, there were no other monsters around him except Ziohei. High-level summoning magic consumes a lot of magic energy. Even if Tangmao didn't say it, Ziohei had made clear arrangements. "Let's go, Ziohei. It's time for us to do serious work." Tangmao looked at a mountain in the distance and said with a hint of excitement. After Ziohei roared softly, he carried Tangmao and ran wildly towards the mountain not far away. Just when Tangmao arrived here, he saw several Italians running over in a hurry. It seemed that they had robbed some treasures. Seeing this, without any surprise, Tangmao first gave each of them a shadow nail, then beat them up. Finally, he directly robbed the resources from the other party and left here directly. A set of actions can be described as flowing water. In just 1 minute, all the problems were solved. After robbing a wave of Italians, Tangmao did not stop to retire. Instead, he kept searching nearby. In this forest, no matter if it was one person or a team of people, as long as he met them, there was no surprise, and he almost robbed them all. Looking at the resources in his hand, Tangmao thought to himself, sure enough, what comes without effort is the most fragrant. Immediately, he looked up at the sky again, searching for pupil eagles nearby. Although this independent space is not very large, it is actually not small. If it weren't for these pupil eagles, he really couldn't find where these people were. As for the number problem, as long as there is no superclass magician, there are not many people worth Tangmao's attention. Just as he was about to leave, he suddenly noticed someone approaching. Even if she tried her best to hide herself, even if there was no pupil eagle following her in the sky, Tangmao still found the other party immediately. "Since you are here, then come out." Looking at the forest behind him, Tangmao said in a light voice. After hearing Tangmao speak, the person in the forest hesitated for a while and finally came out. After seeing the other party come out, Tangmao looked as if it was just as expected. The woman had a curly shoulder-length hair and a delicate and three-dimensional face that looked beautiful and sexy. The pair of golden eyes were even more finishing touches, making her already delicate face suddenly bloom with a nobleness that ordinary people could not see. And this girl was none other than the girl Irene who had an appointment with me. I didn't expect you to find me so soon. Irene smiled slightly, without showing her teeth, but she looked sincere and generous. Moreover, she was not embarrassed at all, and walked straight over. "Little girl, you are not here to avenge those people from the British team, are you?" Not long ago, the 3 people who were robbed by Tangmao were from the British team. While asking, Tangmao also took out a few trophies, which were robbed from the British team. After Irene came over, she shook her head and denied robbing other people's things. "I think your idea is very good. The real meaning of the competition is the competition among countries. I think even if there are resources everywhere here, 160 people can still easily collide with each other and inevitably fight. Instead of wasting time and feelings, it is better to be straightforward. Then are you going to rob me?" Tang Mao found this girl's directness quite interesting, so he did not move, but chatted with her. "I don't think I can beat you." Irene shook her head. She was still very clear about her own weight. Although Tang Mao set traps regardless of attacking one team or one person, anyone with a little bit of insight could see that, even if he didn't use traps, it would not be a problem for him to deal with 4 or 5 members of the national government. "So you're delivering goods to the door." Seeing Tang Mao staring at her up and down, with no manners at all, Irene pouted and said, "Can't I join you and form a temporary team with you?" "Of course not." Hearing that someone had to share the spoils, Tang Mao shook his head decisively, but the girl in front of him was a talented beauty from the UK, and he was a little tempted, so he said, "But if you let me kiss you." Bo Irene heard this, and came closer, and pecked Tang Mao on the face. This seemed to be just a courtesy greeting. For her, it was acceptable. On the contrary, Tang Mao stared at the little woman in front of him with his eyes wide open. "Why, you don't want to regret it?" Irene looked at Tang Mao with a pitiful look. Okay, then I'll play with you, but the resources we snatch have to be split 80 to 20. Facing such a cute girl, he really couldn't afford to cheat. But not being able to cheat doesn't mean that he will really give a 50 to 50 split to a burden. Irene didn't seem to mind it, but just put forward her own request. "Then you have to promise not to use me as cannon fodder." "Then don't worry, just based on your pretty little face, I can't sell it to you." Such a cute girl, can he abandon her? Impossible. In the twisted area, in the battlefields that looked like a patchwork of terrible scenes in a black fairy tale, the brilliant light of magic rose from different places. I don't know how many students from all over the world have gone to great lengths to enter the World University competition just for this important treasure hunt. In the past, I don't know how many unknown students have become the brightest magic stars after shining in the treasure hunt. It is precisely because of this excitement that all students from all countries work extra hard. They all know that if they want to be far ahead in strength, they must frantically plunder the resources scattered throughout the battlefield in this treasure hunt. If they want to win in the final decisive battle, they must do whatever it takes in this environment. And he just chose the most upright point. Chapter 357, Crossing the River and Destroying the Bridge. The pupil eagles frequently flew under the low, thick grey sky. There were many of them, and the organizers had arranged them there early. The pupil eagles themselves had special properties, and they were not easy to arouse the hatred of the demons, so even if they flew over the territory of some demons, they were rarely attacked. This also allowed these special eagle-eyed creatures to come and go freely, to record different battle scenes. Most of the students' outstanding performances will be presented, allowing the world to see the true magic posture. Of course, some clowns and small cruelties will be exposed. For example, there will be huge gaps in the distribution of treasures between teams originally combined from different countries. And Tang Mao's various performances were naturally spread to the eyes of every audience. For this simple and rough robbery of the Chinese mage, not only did it not arouse the disgust of the crowd, but also received cheers from the audience. After all, Tang Mao's battle here is really more exciting. The contestants in each national team are definitely top-notch. The scene of fighting, especially the battles for resources, almost made the audience excited. After all, not everyone can step into the high level and super level. Tang Mao's first wave of robbery had offended 6 or 7 countries, and after Irene joined the group, the 2 of them almost offended all 16 countries. Even on the Chinese side, Zhu Jiming, the unlucky guy, was robbed. However, it was not Tang Mao who dealt with him. After all, he had robbed the British team, so Irene dealt with this guy who was not worth looking at all. Tang Mao not only had no objection, but also supported him with both hands. At the beginning, Tang Mao got nearly 3 billion resources. Now, with the resources shared with Irene, the resources in his hands are almost close to 4 billion. More than 4 billion is almost enough to support a team with a full harvest. Of course, Tang Mao has not encountered any tough guys since the robbery. He has hardly met any serious characters from those powerful countries. This income is enough, so Tang Mao decided to go on an adventure next time. Remember in the original book, Emo Fan got a treasure that improves his mental power. His current mental power is equivalent to that of a sub-celestial species, or even a celestial species. The power of space magic is not weaker than the elemental lightning magic. It can even crush any magic of the same level. The money he has now is enough for him to squander. The most important thing at the moment is, Erin, look around and see if there is a healing magician doing healing business nearby. What's wrong? Are you injured? As she said this, Erin observed Tang Mao with some doubts. He looked lively and obviously didn't look like he was injured. What kind of injury can I have? I just want to find a healing magician to restore my magic power. Tang Mao shrugged and responded. Erin was relieved when she heard that it was to restore magic power. Speaking of which, although following Tang Mao didn't get many resources, it was really exciting. If Tang Mao was really injured and left the stage, Erin would feel very bored. Erin maneuvered in the spiritual system. After Tang Mao finished speaking, she quickly controlled the pupil eagle in the sky to search for him. In a moment, she found the person Tang Mao mentioned. After a rush, Tang Mao and Irene came to the guy they were looking for on a lonely mountain. This guy was from Sweden, named Tony. After he arrived here, he had no intention of snatching resources. Hey Tang Mao, you need treatment. Pa. Just when Tony thought the deal was coming, the barrier he had set up before was smashed directly by that ordinary punch. Question mark? This punch obviously didn't seem to have much power, but after it hit, it broke the defense. Tony didn't react, and Irene covered her mouth, full of shock. It was the first time she saw a space mage who had such mature control over the space system. You don't want to make money from me? Tang Mao smashed his barrier with a punch, and at the same time, he took the space scroll from his hand. Then he said with a bully look, you don't know what my brother does, do you? Brother, let's talk it over. If you want treatment, I can provide it to you for free. Tony seemed to have no backbone at all. After seeing the horror of Tang Mao, he had no intention of resisting at all. Who asked you to treat me? I just came to ask you something. Tang Mao didn't waste any words and asked directly. I heard that you have a priceless treasure here. Take me to find it, and I won't rob you. Tony paused, his mouth twitched slightly. Just when he was about to act pitiful and pretend that he didn't look for any resources, Tang Mao said again, if you don't cooperate, then I will do it. Moreover, as long as it is the resources you earn from treatment, I will not leave you any. When Tony heard this, he hurriedly said, Tang Mao, if you have anything to ask, just tell me directly. I will tell you everything I know. Irene looked at the spineless guy in front of her and expressed her contempt, but Tony obviously didn't care. After all, he didn't take the contempt from the whole world to heart, let alone the girl in front of him. The most valuable treasure here. Tell me what you know. Tang Mao asked decisively and bluntly. Fatty Tony was a little puzzled. How did Tang Mao know about this? After all, he just got the news. However, facing Tang Mao's fierce eyes, he immediately said, I only know a little bit, and I overheard it when I was treating the last batch of people. But how did you know this? Lead the way. Tang Mao had no intention of answering his doubts. Irene actually wanted to ask, but seeing that Tang Mao didn't say anything, she had to hold it in her heart for the time being. Well, I also know the general terrain of the place, but I don't know where it is. Tony said helplessly. After all, he just heard the news, but he didn't go there. So, he really didn't know where the place was. And Irene said at this time, tell me what you know, and I'll look for it. Tony also cooperated very well, and told everything he knew. Irene searched for a long time, but didn't get anything. Tang Mao said, have you found any poisonous fog areas? Irene nodded immediately and said, yes, I found a place that is slightly suitable before, so I sent a pupil eagle to fly over the miasma to investigate the situation below, but the pupil eagle died directly. Okay, let's go. After hearing what Irene said, Tang Mao was sure. When Tony was about to follow, Tang Mao turned around and handed over the space scroll, saying, just continue to do business here, don't be a burden. After receiving the life-saving talisman, Tony wanted to swear immediately after hearing it. Damn, this is simply crossing the river and destroying the bridge. Although the information he provided was just like that, but it can't be so straightforward, right? However, for a ruthless person like Tang Mao, he really has no temper. Chapter 358 will get something for nothing and carry it through to the end. After finding the place, they rushed there at full speed. The continuous mountains do not look vast, but when running and walking in the mountains, they will find that this is also a world compressed by space. When they walked all the way to the end of the entire mountain range, they finally found that there was indeed a large sunken outline of the earth under the mountains. It was shrouded by a thick layer of rolling black gas. From a distance, it really looked like a black lake. This entire black gas lake is not a complete flat basin lake. Some areas of it are valley basins, some are narrow cracks in the ground, and some places are divided into several parts by mountain peaks. The big lake is connected to the small lake, and the small lake runs through the mountain gorge and long stream. In this mountain area with the overall terrain sinking, it forms a group of dry lakes without water. Looking down on this area from the top of the mountain range, it is spectacular and rugged. The terrain here is extremely complex. It is not an easy task to search for the treasure that can enhance spiritual power here. But fortunately, he didn't think about searching for this thing at all. As long as he found the team that entered before, it would be fine. Irene looked at the scene in front of her and said helplessly, "There is a thick poison layer above the entire lake gorge. How can we go down?" Although she also has some advanced protective gear in this natural poisonous fog area, her equipment may not be able to support a round trip. The most important thing is that she doesn't know how deep it is. "How about you wait here?" Tang Mao knew that it was not safe inside, so he kindly reminded her. Irene was a little unhappy. The place where Tang Mao insisted on coming must have treasures. But now that the place is found, he actually won't let her go in? Question mark? Huh. Little Princess Irene said dissatisfiedly, "We are teammates now. You said you won't abandon me. It's not that I'm greedy, but there are some dangers below. So I don't want you to step into it." Seeing such a beautiful girl's dissatisfaction, Tang Mao explained softly. Irene was even more confused when she heard this. After all, the two of them were almost always together. But how did Tang Mao know that there was a treasure here? Moreover, how did he know that the healing guy knew this information? How did you know that the businessman knew there were high-level resources there? And how did he know about this kind of place? Irene was really confused and asked immediately. Tang Mao smiled. He had already prepared a statement for this. Since he chose to treat people instead of snatching treasures, he must have met a lot of people. And among them, more or less, some information will be passed to him. That's why I threatened him. As for why I knew there were treasures here, Tang Mao looked down. That's even simpler, because of the natural barrier here. Although this kind of place is very dangerous, it also means that the gains you can get here are definitely huge. Of course, there is also a lot of gambling involved. I don't know whether it is or not. So, I don't want to take you down to take risks. After listening to Tang Mao's well-reasoned words, Irene really didn't find any flaws. After thinking for a while, I think that, even if there are treasures here, there must be powerful demons guarding them. You'd better not go down. She was not afraid of death, but she felt that this kind of gamble was too risky. How could she know that there would be treasures here without going down? Moreover, even if there were, such a large barrier meant that there was an even larger place below. If she went to look for it, there would be almost no hope. I'm different from you. I'm just a mountain villager. I don't have any background, and I don't have any resources to support me. So, if I want to become stronger, I have to go through the dragon's den and the tiger's lair. Hearing this, Irene was a little puzzled. When did the mountain villager become so powerful? In the entire government team, the only one who could compete with Tang Mao one-on-one, in her opinion, was the pervert in their team, right? As for the others, there was almost no hope. Anyway, she was very sensible and knew her own weight. Moreover, she was not a output mage. Her role was just a support. In that case, I have to go down with you. I can't watch you go to your death alone. Although Irene was a little timid, she still spoke with loyalty. Tang Mao was a little puzzled. Looking at the girl in front of him, he thought, "Are you okay? Going down with me in such a place?" He had already said it was so dangerous. Is this woman crazy? However, no matter what Tang Mao said, Irene had to follow him. After all, they were teammates. There was no way. Tangmao had to agree in the end. As for going down, it was not difficult. After all, he had the Black Snake magic armor. Although it was not a hard defensive magic tool, it was an extremely powerful heart killer for poison. The toxins of the Black Snake are definitely the top existence even among all the demons in the world. There may be many more powerful than it, but they will definitely not appear here. In the end, Tangmao could only choose to take Irene down with him. He had many complaints at first, but when the soft body was embraced, everything was not a problem. Irene felt that Tangmao was taking advantage, but he did protect the poison for her. In the end, she could only choose to believe it. Tangmao was just afraid that she would be poisoned, so he did this. The thickness of the poison gas layer was about 2 or 3 meters, and after Tangmao was possessed by the Black Snake demon armor, he was protected by the whirlwind of the wind wings, so it was not very difficult to descend. After descending about 70 or 80 meters, he finally stepped on the bottom of the corrupt swamp. Here is where the real treasure hunt begins. Fortunately, Tangmao did not intend to hunt for treasure at all. He was ready to carry out the spirit of getting something for nothing to the end. Speaking of which, there is no need to do anything, and there is no need to fight. After all, the team that came here before was a great career. They only need to find those people, that's enough. After reaching the bottom, although Irene was surprised by Tangmao's wind system and his magic tools, what made her feel more was fear. At this time, her face was very ugly. She saw that there were dark mountain walls all around, sometimes narrow like cracks, sometimes rugged like the road in the valley, and sometimes the terrain suddenly sank. Chapter 359. 4 different kinds of people. Light up. After hearing what Tangmao said, Irene quickly released the light magic. With its illumination, she was not so scared. Tangmao himself did not need light. After all, he was still an excellent shadow mage. However, Irene's trembling appearance, if she didn't remind her, let alone treasure hunting, she would not know how she would die later. After Irene's mood recovered a little, the two began to search. After a while, the two had walked to the depths. While rushing on the road, Irene suddenly stopped and said, "Look, this should be the water storage container left by the previous team. It seems that we are not wrong." Tangmao nodded and continued to open the way. They did not have a smooth journey. After all, this is not the sunny and cloudless Venice, but a place for training. There are naturally many demons, but even if there are many demons, they are nothing under Tangmao's powerful output magic attack of thunder, ice, and fire. Of course, until now, they have not encountered any big guys. The strongest of these demons that emerged is only at the level of a general. His mental power is good. Even if he has no sound system, his hearing is definitely first class. But after searching for a while, he didn't hear any sound. Tangmao, who was a little impatient, was too lazy to continue exploring slowly. After all, there are monarch level demons here. Irene was searching slowly with the light, and suddenly, the whole person was pulled into Tangmao's arms. The light dissipated. Before she could react, the person had begun to move at high speed. There was no room for resistance, so she could only choose to obey lying in Tangmao's arms. Although the swooshing sound of the wind in her ears was scary, Irene did not suffer any pain. Irene couldn't help but think, this embrace is really safe. After running for a while, a deep pool, a total of 7 narrow roads converged here. If there is water flow, it must be a very deep place. After another flight, Tangmao saw a corpse. It seemed to have crawled here desperately. Tangmao didn't pay much attention to the corpse. He took the box in his hand, turned around and left. During this period, Irene didn't understand what happened. At this time, she felt that spring seemed to have arrived. Just when they were about to return to the original route to evacuate, a creature with an unknown number of feet suddenly appeared in front of them. The feet of the creature were like scorpions and spiders, distributed on both sides of the body. In the haze, it was impossible to count the number. The legs could freely grasp some woven silk that had been arranged long ago. If you can't see the woven silk, you will even feel that this thing can crawl in the air. The thing was crawling down, and its body was actually somewhat similar to that of humans, with a head that was particularly small compared to the body, a strong human torso, and a long snake tail. Most of its body was covered with poisonous scales. The full-legged appearance of a human, a scorpion, a spider, and a python looked many times more terrifying than the demons in the outside world. Erin, let's have a blinding light. Tangmao looked at Erin in his arms and said softly. Hearing this, she immediately drew a star map. Then, in the dark cave, light suddenly shone. At the moment, when the light came on, Tangmao suddenly burst into lightning, and then the deadly lightning blasted out. At the same time, Erin also happened to see behind her with the light. I saw that there was such a terrifying monster in the back. When Erin saw this guy, her scalp numbed, her limbs became weak, and she subconsciously held Tangmao's neck tightly with both hands. Boom. At this time, after a thunder exploded, Tangmao did not observe the back again, but flew away directly. Although his thunder system is very strong, this place is their nest. Since they chose to survive here, and they have not been wiped out after so many years, it means that they have various advantages here. In this case, Tangmao will naturally not waste his life here with the other party. After flying away from here, Tangmao gathered the thunder in his hand, and then condensed it. Thunderstorm. The thunder and death light that just exploded did not cause any actual damage to the opponent. However, the power of this thunderstorm was completely different. That was to fill this small cave with the energy of the exploding thunder element. When the first wave of explosions was over, because of the tyrant's wild thunder attribute, the thunder silk once again condensed a high level magic. It immediately exploded on the bodies of the two unlike monsters. The one that was bombarded by Tangmao at first died instantly. The other one was not so attracted to thunder, but it was lucky to have a life. However, Tangmao did not continue to entangle, and he did not even observe whether the dead monster was a residual soul or a spirit. Because of the weak footsteps and strong momentum, it was predicted that the huge monster was rushing here. If I guessed correctly, the opponent's strength must be at least at the level of the runner-up master. Fortunately, when he was running around before, he left a small space magic circle. Although it did not cause any harm, it could give him a reminder, otherwise he would not have heard these things. Moreover, the purpose of coming here has been perfectly achieved, and he also knows how to stop when he is ahead. So, without any hesitation, he turned around and left here. Looking at the dead companion and his own scars, the demon was almost furious. In his own territory, he was beaten like this? If he didn't leave this human behind, it would be difficult to get rid of the hatred in his heart. Immediately, this useless thing roared angrily, as if he hoped to get support from his own boss. However, at the moment it roared, Tangmao's 6 wings had already unfolded perfectly. The speed just now was already the speed of a normal high-level wind mage, and at this moment, it almost completely surpassed the speed of a high-level wind mage. Although Irene was a little limp with fear, she did not lose consciousness. Tangmao's thunderstorm just now, and the sudden acceleration at this time, almost made her open her mouth wide. This speed, and the power just now, is it something that a high-level mage can have? However, although she was surprised when she felt an extremely powerful momentum coming, she took out a treasure and immediately gave it to Tangmao to use. With the help of Irene's treasure, she rushed out of the poisonous gas layer in almost one breath. When she saw the bright sky and mountains, Irene felt a sense of relief, as if she had seen the sun again. How it's safe, it's safe. After landing, Irene reluctantly left Tangmao's arms, and then patted her chest, and said with relief. Tangmao thought to himself, what if this thing falls down? They were just safe, and it hadn't been a minute, but who would have thought that the poison layer still made that kind of heart-pounding cry, and then saw a 4-legged beast that was far better than the one just now, and it also rushed out of the black poison ditch, as if it was looking for a fight. Chapter 360 Meeting Irene. Seeing this, Tangmao was also unhappy, and Irene said with some fear, it's over, it's over. This guy seems to be stronger than the previous two. What are you afraid of? This is not the inside. Tangmao said in a light voice. After the words fell, thunder continued to rise around him, and the power of fire was also mixed in it. The reason why it is fire instead of ice is naturally because after Yanji possessed the body, the power of the fire element almost reached the same output as the thunder element. Blue Fire Phoenix. After combining with Yanji, the control of the fire element is almost like adding wings to a tiger. The blue soul fire in his hand directly condensed the fire phoenix and emerged. Then he rushed straight to the 4-in-1 bombing, and after a bang, the flame scattered silent thunder death light. The fire phoenix exploded. Although the flame spread all over the opponent's body, there was no actual damage. Then Tang Mao hurriedly described the thunder constellation. The monster, who looked like nothing, naturally would not wait to fight Tang Mao. He ignored the green flames on his body and opened his mouth to spray out a thick poisonous fog. However, how could this thin fog resist the violent and fierce thunder? Rushing straight down, the shell that was originally roasted was scorched on a large area under the bombardment of thunder. The poisonous fog could not stop the thunder, and the thunder could not resist the poisonous fog at all. Facing the rushing fog, the thunder and fire around Tang Mao dissipated, and the thick ice layer wrapped him, and Irene in it. Sure, the poisonous fog hit the ice layer, and began to corrode it directly. Obviously, the power of this poison is very strong. Tang Mao has the Black Snake Demon armor, so he is not afraid. But Irene is different. In this case, he has no way to protect her. Irene, hurry up, use your light system to evolve. Seeing that the ice layer was about to be corroded, Tang Mao hurriedly said. Irene also knew that Tang Mao was not afraid of the poison. This layer of ice wall protection was actually more for her. Immediately, all the protective magic weapons in his hand were taken out and used. Then he began to use light magic to evolve. With Irene's defense, Tang Mao stared at the four-legged beast. After all, he actually didn't know what this thing was called until now. Wild Thunder. Thunderstorm. Looking at the dense lightning threads on its body, Tang Mao used the domain to exert new skills. As his new thunder fell, the huge body began to explode. Bang, bang. The superimposed lightning threads, under the guidance of the Wild Thunder Tyrant, completed the giant thunderstorm, which was almost equivalent to a superclass thunder magic. However, just after the thunder exploded, Tang Mao saw that the other party did not explain it. Question mark? I saw that the skin on its body was completely removed by the thunder, revealing the rotten flesh bitten by corrupt insects inside. Most of the legs, that were originally countless, were broken or shattered, and even the snake's tail was about to fall off. After noticing Tang Mao's terror, it lost its previous arrogance, turned around and slammed into the poisonous miasma layer, and disappeared in the blink of an eye. Looking at the already severely injured Sabu Ziyang, Tang Mao wanted to chase him. After all, if this Sabu Ziyang could explode a spirit or something, it would be a huge profit. But in the end, Tang Mao thought about it and gave up. Since it has lived here for many years without being wiped out, it is enough to prove its strength, and the terrain here is an advantage for others. Erin, are you okay? Tang Mao asked after the poisonous fog dissipated. Erin nodded. Her little face was still a little pale, and she looked frightened. Seeing this, Tang Mao took her away from here. However, it was still a step too late. Just as they left this area, they met the organizers, the British boss, and Hanji from the ancient capital. Among them, there was also the Hunter King who arranged the venue this time. After they appeared, they naturally reprimanded them first. After all, these two people were too bold, but because there was no obstruction here before, the matter could only be left unresolved in the end. As for the people who died below, they could only blame themselves for their bad luck. With this adventure together, Irene's pure and flawless heart seemed to have suffered a little bit of strange pollution, but she herself did not notice it. Although they were not damaged, because Irene controlled the pupil eagle and trespassed into the forbidden area without authorization, they were also deprived of the opportunity to continue to grab treasures. When leaving this strange space and returning to the Venetian venue, Irene looked at Tang Mao and said, "This experience is very exciting, and I will remember it deeply. Thank you, your thanks are insincere. Why don't you buy me a drink in the evening?" Tang Mao looked at Irene with a playful look on his face and said tentatively, if it were in the past, if a boy invited her to drink and it was at night, Irene would definitely refuse immediately. However, after Tang Mao finished speaking, she hesitated for a moment and said, "See you tonight." After she finished speaking, Irene left. Tang Mao was a little slow to react. He had just said it casually, but he didn't expect that this little girl would actually agree. However, since Irene agreed, he naturally needed to go back and wash up after all. He just saw a glimmer of hope for a home run in her eyes. Although he was very troubled by the problems of the girls now, it would be a waste of resources if he couldn't push a beautiful girl like Irene. Tang Mao was no longer interested in caring about the treasure hunt. After all, his gains were already enough. The most important thing was that he might get the favor of a goddess later. So, after washing up, Tang Mao came to the agreed place early. However, when he just arrived, he found that Irene was already standing there waiting under the street lights. Irene was wearing a blue dress. The low-cut neckline revealed a deep milky cleavage that was about to burst out. This height and this proportion are rare. TSK. Tang Mao was a little excited at the thought of having a pleasant night. Although his energy had not fully recovered from the punishment of Giant Izzy that day, it shouldn't be a big problem to deal with Irene, who was tasting the forbidden fruit for the first time. Tang Mao? Just when this guy was thinking, Irene happened to see him. However, after seeing him standing there and grinning, she called out softly with some confusion. Hearing this, Tang Mao quickly restrained his emotions and didn't feel embarrassed. He walked over and said, "Why are you here so early? If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels." Chapter 361 Just a Girlfriend. Facing Tang Mao's stupid question, Irene simply ignored it. Was she going to say that she couldn't wait? Did she lose her girlish reserve? Where to go? Tang Mao didn't care about Irene's lack of response. After all, he regretted it the moment he finished speaking. He was asking such a stupid question. What the hell was he asking? This is my first time here too. Let's take a look around and go wherever we see. At this time, where to go was obviously not important. The important thing was that Irene was definitely interested in him. Instead of hesitating here, he might as well take the girl for a walk first. What if he came across a comfortable hotel or something? Wouldn't he be able to take a break? Irene didn't refuse and followed Tang Mao and strolled around casually. After strolling around, the two came to a star-rated hotel in Venice. Then everything happened naturally. When Irene lay down and Tang Mao held her hand tightly, she suddenly realized that she had not even felt the 6 spicy hot pot and was carried up to the sky in a daze. I don't know if it was because Irene's magic major was water element or because of her personality. Tang Mao also felt deeply today, a gentle husband. Even though she was stupid and her movements were awkward, Tang Mao was very satisfied. She was so happy that she couldn't stop smiling. Time always passed inadvertently. 2 hours later, Irene was slightly out of breath and collapsed there like mud. Suddenly she thought of something, looked at Tang Mao and asked seriously, "Last time, the girl who fought with me, what is your relationship with her?" Tang Mao paused, and the corners of his mouth twitched slightly. The descendants have almost been explained, and at this time, this silly girl actually asked herself this? Question mark? After hesitating for a while, Tang Mao chose to be more honest and said, "We are friends, very close friends." Aileen thought it was just good friends, and didn't think much about it. She said, "I gave you everything I have. No matter what happens in the future, you are not allowed to lie to me, otherwise." "Otherwise what?" Tang Mao asked with some doubt. "Otherwise, I will castrate you." Aileen bit her lip and was silent for a while before speaking again. Hearing this, Tang Mao felt his big bird tremble. He immediately said frankly, "You are so beautiful, how could I bear to lie to you? However, I need to tell you that my good friends are not just Munijiro, but also Jiang Shaoxu and Muningsu." Aileen always felt awkward listening to it, because why are Tang Mao's good friends all women? Fortunately, at the end, Tang Mao said, "Of course, there is also a silly brother named Zhao Manayan." When talking about Zhao Manayan, the expression was somewhat disgusted. There was no other way. At first, he was talking about his close girlfriend. When he saw Irene's beautiful eyebrows frown slightly, he hurriedly pulled Zhao Manayan out. Sure enough, with Zhao Manayan, The idiot. Filling in the gap. Irene really didn't think much about it. Seeing Irene's satisfied look, Tang Mao thought, even if we are discovered in the future, we have already admitted it. After a while of tenderness here, Tang Mao took Irene to make up for the after evening meal. By the way, they also watched a completely incomprehensible movie. When Irene was sent back to her residence at night, she was still happy. She was still very satisfied with Tang Mao, her future husband. It was just that, if she wanted to marry him, it would still be a little difficult. Irene had a headache about changing her nationality. Fortunately, Tang Mao was magnanimous and didn't make things difficult for her at all, and he also gave her time. This made Irene even more satisfied. But little did she know that Tang Mao was just an excuse to give her a buffer time. Before he went in, he didn't think too much, but after he came out, his mind was full of regret. Damn it, can't you be more careful? After seeing Irene off, Tang Mao pointed at his little brother and started to curse. It was simply too much. Some of the patrolling guards in Venice were stunned when they saw this. What are you looking at? Haven't you seen people walking their birds at night? Being stared at like this, even Tang Mao was a little embarrassed. After all, this matter itself is embarrassing. After cursing, Tang Mao turned around and left. The guard in the front saw this and curled his lips and said in Italian, "Is this kid a BT? I think so, too, not sleeping at night, cursing at your bird here. You look like a fool at first glance." After that night, Tang Mao went into seclusion again to recuperate. At first, I didn't feel anything. I went back to my residence and slept for a night. The next day, I felt a lot of strength on my waist. When the treasure hunt entered the statistical ranking, Tang Mao didn't care. After all, fists will do the talking next. It doesn't matter which rank you win. The second round of the World Academy competition ended just like that. Next, it was the final decisive battle. The decisive battle was relatively simple and rough. The students fought against each other to decide the final champion, and then the top 3 received extremely generous rewards. And in the past few days, something happened at Parthenon. One of the 4 saints who had just been selected suddenly died. This matter was no less sensational than the previous Dark Masters matter. After all, Parthenon was a well-known international power. Of course, Tang Mao had no interest in these things. Moreover, with the help of the gemstones that improved his mental power, Tang Mao expected that he could try to break through his mental power. But after several days, his mental power did not improve much. He was still in the 7th realm. However, after these days of practice, he broke through to the high-level 2nd level of the fire system. And now there is no improvement in the shadow system and wind system. The format of the finals is different from the previous elimination matches. Although it is still a team battle, players from different countries can replace team members during the confrontation. The total number of people on the field is still 10, but once a student is eliminated and defeated, the schools of each country can immediately send a student to enter the field. To keep the number of 5 players unchanged, there are 3 chances to replace. That is to say, a country can have 8 players on the field in one game. This is also the best way to test the strength of each country. At the same time, it will change into many different combinations and matches, testing the use and coordination of different magic systems in each country. For these, all countries have begun to study countermeasures, team combinations, etc. Even China is still the same. Chapter 362 Finals Opening. As the final of the World Academy competition opened, the matter of the Parthenon Saint was gradually put behind people's minds. The taverns throughout Venice hung portraits of members of various academies and ranked the strength of the students. This strength ranking was naturally measured by the performance of the previous elimination and treasure hunting competitions. Not surprisingly, Tang Mao's strength was ranked 2nd. The first was a genius from the UK, Zheluo. Tang Mao didn't care about this ranking. After all, once they fought, it would be clear who was stronger and who was weaker. As for the 3rd place, he was from the United States and had a close relationship with the Temple of Liberty. His name was Jess. He was already a temple mage during his school years. He had arrested many fierce criminals in America and was nicknamed the Cold Judge. He majored in the plant department, the curse department, and the light department. He was a control type mage. Tang Mao didn't know how strong this woman was, but this murder weapon was really great. And the whole person looks like a woman who walked out of anime. The fourth place is a German contestant, but Tang Mao only cares about appreciating the beauty of this girl called Jessie and selectively ignores the ones behind. After analyzing with everyone, Tang Mao secretly pulled Jiang Xiaoxu away. After all, it is more comfortable to have time to do something meaningful than to waste youth here. Jiang Xiaoxu was very unhappy when Tang Mao stared at that big group. He even deliberately straightened his beautiful weapon towards Tang Mao. But I have to admit that this bitch is definitely the most perfect among the girls he has experienced. Even Ashiruaya, who is more charming than her, is not as good in this regard. Every time Tang Mao pressed her, he would always spend a lot of time to study it. Although it would take a lot of time, Tang Mao didn't mind at all. After all, this is really a feeling that makes people love it. And Jiang Huli didn't mind either. After all, this is indeed what she is proud of. Plus her natural charm, her overall appearance is not much worse than anyone else. Damn it, where have you been recently? So useless. Did you cheat on me? I thought it would be another torture today, but it softened after less than 2 hours. The little hoof has always known that this scumbag has never been chased. But at least it was able to pass before. But now, it has failed. Jiang Huli was instantly unhappy. In recent days, Irene's 1.7 meter height, ready-made frame, and still so gentle, he is really a little obsessed. Originally, he planned to let himself rest, but there are some things that he can't decide at all. The little brother has his own ideas, especially one is gentle as water, and the other is enchanting and charming. Full of asterisk, it really makes people can't refuse. As for Jiang Hui's dissatisfaction, anyway, it has been resolved, so he is dissatisfied. Seeing Tang Mao's silence is golden, Jiang Xiaoxu became even more angry. This is too much. This bastard is really getting more and more prominent, even after pulling up his pants and refusing to admit it. Although Jiang Xiaoxu was very unhappy, he just stretched out his hand and pinched his waist twice to relieve his anger. There was no other way. Although it was very painful, sometimes he still chose to tolerate it. There was no other way. What if he couldn't tolerate it? After all, he couldn't control his thing. After pinching Tang Mao, Jiang Xiaoxu tidied himself up, kicked him angrily, and left immediately. The next morning, the small city of Venice was filled with ancient and majestic bells, awakening the sweet dreams of the people in this city on the Mediterranean. After the bells, there were Italian literary and artistic music, clear and melodious. Listening to these music, you will feel that the air has become particularly fresh. Of course, this is also a psychological effect. At the hour mark, the finals officially opened. The 8 countries that performed outstandingly in the battlefield treasure hunt were lined up in a row, standing in the center of an extremely spacious and spectacular Venice Colosseum. 8 colors and 8 races were surrounded, and cheered by tens of thousands of people in the audience. There were 8 teams, including some substitutes. There were about 100 people in total. Although there were also very outstanding students in the eliminated national government team, they were eliminated. In terms of future reputation and social influence, they could not be compared with 100 people on the field now. This is reality. There will be a total of 4 games on the opening day. Basically, all 8 countries will be displayed on this day, and then tomorrow's game will be held, based on the win-loss relationship, which will also be 4 games. As long as these stand out, the next competition will not be a big problem. Huaxia Guofu team. Mentor Fengli looked at everyone with a serious face, and then said in a cold voice, "We have a total of 5 opportunities to play. According to probability, we will encounter most of the countries on the field. Among them, the 4 undisputed powers are the ones we must go all out. If we can maintain a record of winning and losing among the 4 powers, we will have the hope of impacting the top 3. I think, even if I don't need to say more, you should know what kind of rewards the top 3 teams can get, right?" Feng Li's way of encouragement is always so straightforward, and everyone is used to it. And Feng Li glanced at everyone again and said, "If you want to become a strong person who stands out, then what happens next depends on your own performance. Remember, this is a team competition. Even if your personal bravery is outstanding, as long as you don't get a ranking, you are still nothing. In fact, there is one point that Feng Li did not explain. That is, the results created by the Guofu team are also related to the interests of the entire country. In this world, demons are rampant, and humans can only hide in cities. Resources are extremely limited. Some rare but important resources cannot be taken by powerful countries by hegemony. They need a suitable reason, at least a fair, just and civilized way to compete. And this way is to speak with the strength of students from universities in various countries, which is also the original origin of the competition between world universities. This is also why the national government competition held every 4 years is so important to all major forces. This special way of enfeoffment will not be made public internationally, let alone disclosed to the world, but it is also the most feasible distribution standard in today's society. Chapter 363 Tang Mao, I want a city. Tang Mao shrugged and said, in the end, what honor or not, if I fight to the death, I don't think I can get anything to real. If the enemy country sends a few beautiful foreign horses to the top 4 in the finals, I might let them win. After this, everyone present was in a state of dismay. Of course, there are supporters, such as Mo Fan. He is also a grassroots person. He relies on himself for resources and equipment, and has not received any subsidies at all. There are very few people like him who can get to where he is now, and also have Soul Thunder, Spirit Fire, and high-level Thunder, Fire, and Shadow systems. If other countries really promised something valuable, he would be embarrassed to refuse. Then you are honest enough, but since you think you can let them win, does that mean that you think you can win the battle? Isn't that casual? Tang Mao didn't care who said it, and responded with a smile. In that case, as long as you can win, I will match you up with any kind of beauty you like, or the girl from aristocratic family you like. In China, many people will still give me face. At least if others are not satisfied, they will not kick you out. A middle-aged man came over, and a somewhat steady voice came over. Grand Speaker. Feng Li and Song He saw the person who was speaking coming, and they all stepped forward respectfully. Even Han Ji and others were the same. Some other children from aristocratic families also expressed their most polite appearances. Tang Mao did not continue to be careless. After all, the person in front of him was at least the top boss in China. People can be arrogant, but they cannot be ungrateful. Of course, he would not act like a dog. After all, he is not a politician, and there is no need to care about these things. Xiao Zheng responded to everyone with a military salute. Judging from his appearance, he was also from the military. At this time, Feng Li looked at Tang Mao very seriously. Don't talk nonsense in front of the Grand Speaker. Serving the country is the highest honor. Even if you have nothing, you are still a Chinese student. Oh, I'm just saying. Tang Mao shrugged, and then said confidently, as if he was joking, the person I like is destined to be mine. No one can move, and no one can do anything to stop it, unless it wants to become history. Feng Li's mouth twitched slightly. Others present were also stunned. Jiang Xiaoxu, Mu Ningxu, and Mu Nijiao were a little shy, but they felt that this was really arrogant. On the contrary, whether it was Xiao Zheng or Han Ji, they did not doubt the truth of this sentence. After all, the demon who appeared in the ancient capital at the beginning was already at the level of the top monarch. Now Tang Mao has improved his strength a lot, and he has also mastered the demonization. If he transforms again, how strong he will be, no one knows. Tang Mao's mastery of demonization, Han Ji will naturally not hide anything from his boss. Ahem. Although he knew, Han Ji felt helpless, thinking, this kid, can't he be more low-key? When he was about to speak, Xiao Zheng suddenly smiled and said, this is a society ruled by law after all. Sometimes, if you make a mistake, you will fall into an abyss. Think twice before you act. If there is something you can't solve, you can come to me. Tang Mao's power is very strong, especially since he already has such strength at such a young age. As long as he is well trained, he will definitely be a huge help to China in the future. Xiao Zheng didn't want to see him sink. Then, the Grand Speaker said, I came here to encourage you. Of course, in addition to encouragement, I still have some words to say. No matter which side you represent, I hope you understand that our country has a complex terrain, and the number of demons and the strength of evil spirits are among the top 5 in the world. We can resist the demons of the top 5 in the world in terms of number and strength with scarce resources that are not even in the top 20. This is not because our mages are so strong, but because we have a large population and pay more lives. I'm sorry that China has become the country with the highest casualties among mages. Then, he looked at the members of the national government very sincerely. You have been very good to get to this point, but I still have more expectations for you. I hope you can get a high ranking and get more resources for us. I hope that when you want to give up, please consider those people struggling on the edge of the demon world and ask yourself if you have really reached your limit and whether you can go further. As long as we have one more rank and more resources, we can sacrifice tens of thousands less soldiers. Please. At the end, there was almost a hint of pleading in his words. After listening to Xiao Zheng, Tang Mao suddenly thought of something and said, Grand Speaker, if I lead my team to the first place, can the country give me a city? You want it? Xiao Zheng was slightly stunned. He didn't expect that Tang Mao's appetite was so big. Let alone him. In fact, even other people didn't expect that Tang Mao's appetite was so big. Before Xiao Zheng was shocked, Tang Mao said again, I want a piece of my own territory. Of course, I definitely don't want a stable place. As the first stop of our training, it is enough for Phenio City to be allocated to me. I have enough confidence that, if I take over there, it will become an important city in China in the future. Phenio City's security level is not very high, especially without any security barriers. The sea monster alone is enough to give the government a headache, but for Tang Mao, it is nothing. Moreover, it doesn't look very impressive now, but it will definitely flourish in the future. Since you want to establish your own family, the territory should be done first. Feng Li originally wanted to scold Tang Mao, but after hearing that it was Phenio City and Xiao Zheng had no intention of stopping him, he kept silent. Do you want to establish a family? Xiao Zheng was also shocked by what Tang Mao wanted. But the city was nothing. That's right. Tang Mao did not hide it at all, and nodded and admitted it. You have great ambitions, but let's not talk about the city first. Facing several powerful opponents, are you so sure that you can make it to the end? Xiao Zheng did not refuse, but asked again. No, at least there is no substantial reward. I don't have much motivation. Tang Mao said with a smile. Good boy, you really know how to find an opportunity to reach out. He really has a headache for people like Tang Mao. But then again, a place with no safety, or a place that is almost abandoned, is not impossible to give to Tang Mao. But it is not good to make it seem like a deal, to win glory for the country. Xiao Zheng immediately turned serious. Your instructor has just told you that this is for the glory of the country. As for the land, if you have enough funds to run the city, you can apply for it later. Now all you have to do is to complete the competition well. If you can really get first place, I will personally give you a gift. Chapter 364 Hanji's Maintenance. Tang Mao smiled and said nothing more. Some things can be said in one sentence. After all, everyone is an understanding person. There is no need to explain it too clearly. However, it is fortunate that the current Phenio City is not taken seriously. Otherwise, his request is just looking for excitement. Zhao Manian, who was standing aside, felt very uncomfortable about the conversation between the two. It seemed that he had fallen into the trap again. Zhu Jiming had always been full of dissatisfaction with Tang Mao. Now that he heard that this grassroots was going to establish a family, he was even more jealous. In addition, his family was here, so he said, Tang Mao, everyone is winning glory for the country. Why do you still have to put forward conditions? Moreover, do you think you can solve all the competitions by yourself? Are you too self-righteous? Hearing Zhu Jiming's chattering, Tang Mao turned around and said coldly, you have to understand one thing. There are naturally people who come here to win glory for the country, but at least you are not one of them. Zhu Jiming was afraid of death all the way. In addition to wanting to be in the limelight here, he really didn't care about this matter. However, being pointed out so bluntly was simply too much. but being stared at by Tang Mao, he inexplicably felt a little scared. Besides, I'm curious. Who nominated a useless guy like you who is so afraid of death? The old congressman's secretary was also very dissatisfied with Tang Mao. When he heard this, he said directly in a cold voice, "Grand Speaker, I really don't understand. Strength is important, but character is the biggest key. Such a presumptuous and arrogant student may accept invitations from other countries after the national government competition. Then what's the point of our training with so much effort? It is better to let him hand over the resources of the treasure hunt and distribute them equally to other students." Tang Mao glanced at the old woman in front of him, then looked at Xiao Zheng and shrugged. If the top leaders of our country are all like this, then even if they get the first place and obtain resources, it is still useless. Of course, I'm just a student. Even if I graduate in the future, I don't have any big ideals. You politicians can't get involved. I just said it casually. The secret arts counselor almost turned black at Tang Mao's words. Tang Mao, don't be rude. Although Xiao Zheng also disliked this old woman, some etiquette still needs to be observed. After watching Tang Mao shut up, Xiao Zheng looked at the secret arts counselor and said, "Zhu Huayan, this is not our meeting room, and they are just students. Moreover, he was just chatting with me casually just now. Your proposal is a bit too heavy." Zhu Huayan didn't want to let Tang Mao go at this time, so he said, "I just think that this student was mentally weak at the beginning, and it is not impossible that he will betray the country later." Zhu Huayan, I don't like what you said. I don't know what the other students are like, but Tang Mao has absolutely no problems. I'm very dissatisfied with your suspicion and doubt. I hope you apologize to him. Han Ji stood aside. Although he was a little confused about Tang Mao's floating, he couldn't help but speak when he heard this woman say that. Just like Xiao Zheng said, this is not a meeting room for big officials. What Tang Mao said just now was just a casual chat. He couldn't accept such a needle-in-law for the hero who saved millions of lives in the ancient capital. Han Ji, did I hear it wrong? Zhu Huayan was stunned. You know, he is a secret arts counselor. Isn't Han Ji stupid? Question mark? He actually offended her for such a small person? Question mark? You heard me right. I'm telling you seriously. Apologize to Tang Mao for what you did just now. Han Ji took a step forward, showing that he was not joking, and also showing his momentum. Han Ji, Zhu Huayan is just scolding the younger generation. You don't have to take it so seriously, right? Mu's old patriarch Mu Mercury said. Others also tried to persuade him. After all, it was not decent to ask a secretary of the speaker to apologize to the students. Han Ji's request was too much. Even if he protected her, he should have a limit. Han Ji, however, was quite serious. He ignored everything they said, and his tone was also unusually stern. No. Whoever said it must be responsible. Tang Mao just likes to joke around. Although he is a bit outspoken, he has no malice. However, some people deliberately misinterpreted his meaning in front of the Grand Speaker, saying that he has a problem with his character, and that he might be a traitor. Then he pointed at Zhu Huayan and said coldly, "You are a secretary of the speaker. What is your intention in making such remarks in public? Do you know how much impact this will have on a student?" At this moment, Han Ji has made his position clear. In addition to Xiao Zheng, Mo Fan is actually the only one who knows about it. But at this time, he naturally won't say anything more, and Mo Fan knows that Han Ji has no personal feelings about this debate. The reason why he stood up is because of the millions of people in the ancient capital. At the beginning, he was helpless. Tang Mao not only saw through the Black Church's plan, but also successfully captured a headmaster. The most important thing is that when the unstoppable and terrifying undead spirit of the mountain corpse came to kill, it was Tang Mao who stopped it. So, he naturally would not allow Zhu Huayan to say that to Tang Mao. The news has not been made public, which is disrespectful to a hero. But there is no way. The ancient capital was being rebuilt at that time, and he also needed to guard against the Black Church. More importantly, Tang Mao was still a student. Han Ji was afraid that it would bring him unnecessary crisis. But when he later learned that Tang Mao was assassinated in the Temple of Freedom, he understood. He had actually been marked by the Black Church a long time ago. In this case, Hanji felt it necessary to give him the honor he deserved. This is also the most important reason why he came here instead of the ancient capital. Zhu Huai naturally would not admit defeat and still made it clear that she wanted to step on Tang Mao. What intention could I have? I just wanted to scold him. A person's character is reflected in his usual behavior. At least what he showed is very problematic. In my opinion, he is still so young, but he only cares about interests and interests. No matter how you look at it, he is a person with evil intentions. Evil intentions. Very good. Very good. Remember what you said. Hanji laughed instead of getting angry. Did I say anything wrong? Zhu Huaiyan thought Hanji had run out of words and said in the same cold voice, "It's you, Hanji, who are shielding a kid like this. What is your intention? Even if this is just a casual chat, based on what he said just now, shouldn't I reprimand him?" Hanji didn't care about what she said about shielding and said again in a cold voice, "This is the final of the top 8. Today is the last game. I was planning to announce something when Tang Mao appears in the public eye with his own strength. Zhu Huaiyan, you still have 3 games to think about whether you should apologize to him. Once a national players competition time comes, don't say you want to take back your words, because then what you have to do won't be as simple as an apology." Zhu Huaiyan didn't care at all and just sneered. Chapter 365. The low-key German national team. In her opinion, this time, this old man is just right to make those old guys clear about some things. Suddenly, she didn't hate Tang Mao so much. After all, in her eyes, this unruly boy was a help to her. And Tang Mao looked like he was watching a show afterwards. He knew what he was talking about, but he also knew that this was a place for a break in the game. He didn't have any family power behind him, so it didn't matter what he said. It didn't involve any complicated things. Moreover, this old woman was typical of looking for excitement. The Grand Speaker Xiao Zheng never stopped it, just watching the quarrel between the two. Occasionally, he would check Tang Mao's mood. It was not until the two finished quarreling that the Grand Speaker took Zhu Huaiyan away. Zhao Manian, who was standing aside, looked at Tang Mao and said with a complicated expression, "Damn it. Tang Mao, you are too proud now, aren't you? Moreover, even if it was just a joke, you still have to ask for help. Now you have offended this old woman from the Zhu family. Even with Hanji's help, it will be very troublesome." Tang Mao shrugged and said nonchalantly, "I'm not afraid of anything. I'm upright, and I'm not afraid of my own shadow." Jiang Xiaoxu also came over. He had already thrown away his previous dissatisfaction and said with some concern, "Do you need me?" "No." Before Jiang Huli finished speaking, Tang Mao interrupted her directly. "What a joke. He is still wearing the halo of a savior. Why does he need to eat soft rice? If it was just a friend, Jiang Huli would naturally not make trouble if the other party said so. But the person in front of her was her future husband. She knew very well how big the influence of this matter was. Even if Tang Mao had nothing behind him, once it spread, it would definitely have a great impact on him, as Hanji said. Then, she continued to persuade him earnestly, "Do you know that the old woman in the Zhu family will soon spread what happened just now through channels, which will really have a big impact on you?" Tang Mao was not in a hurry at all, and suddenly asked, "If I really get beaten up by everyone on the street, will you still accompany me?" Jiang Xiaoxu said politely. It was such a time, and this man still looked indifferent, which really gave her a headache. "Who do you think I am? Oh, I'm talking to you about business, don't make a fuss." Jiang Xiaoxu was a little distracted and stamped his feet in anger. Don't worry." Tang Mao smiled and didn't say much, just rubbed Jiang Xiaoxu. She was really helpless about this, but she was also very curious. Tang Mao didn't care so much. Was there really any way to deal with it? Even Zhao Manian was quite puzzled. And Zhu Jiming, who was unhappy with Tang Mao, was gloating. He didn't think that a grassroots Tang Mao plus Hanji would make any waves. At this time, the game had already begun. The first, second, and third games were all very exciting. When it came to the finals of the top 8, there would not be too many teams hiding and reserving too much. After all, they were facing powerful countries. Compared with the previous elimination matches and treasure hunts, the students in the final battle were obviously much stronger. The resources absorbed by the treasure hunt also accounted for a very important proportion. Students who reaped rich rewards in the treasure hunts could often leave students with equal strength far behind. The United States vs. Greece. Greece is an ancient magic country, and there is a sacred and noble organization like the Parthenon. Greece's strength has always been high. It is one of the few students who can compete with the United States in terms of student strength. The students on both sides fought for a long time. Even the 3 players who were replaced still performed outstandingly, which amazed the global audience, and made the vast majority of students who were also in their 20s, but still hovering at the beginner and intermediate levels feel ashamed. In the end, the Greek team narrowly defeated the United States, and entered the winners group. The difference in strength between Britain and France was obvious. They almost dominated the game, and even the British captain ZHELUO still did not use other magic systems. With only one summoning system, plus the players, he crushed the whole field. After this event, ZHELUO convinced more people. Many British people have stated that ZHELUO's strongest system is definitely not the summoning system. His other 2 systems have not been used even in the current competition. It can be seen that this person is unfathomable. The third game was a decisive battle between Canada and Egypt. The strength of these 2 countries is not particularly strong. Egypt has their corpse seed tactics, which is constantly consumed. After the longest time, it finally surprised people that they actually killed Canada. All along, everyone has not been optimistic about the Egyptian team. Of course, in fact, everyone does not know that this year's Egyptian team is the real dark horse. The opponent that Tang Mao and his team will face next is even more low-key and pretentious. Because no matter whether it is the elimination match or the treasure hunt, they have always been so mediocre as a team member or captain. But because of this, they have made it to the final smoothly. No news. This is the worst news, because all arrangements may fail. Feng Li thought about it and then said, Ai Jiang Tu, Nanju, Mutingying, Jiang Shaogsu, Zhao Manian, you 5 go first. The 5 people combined together are not very strong in offensive ability. Zhao Manian and Jiang Shaogsu are typical auxiliary and defensive mages. Zhao Manian focuses on elemental defense, Jiang Shaogsu is mental defense, and the other magics of the 2 do not have very good offensive capabilities. Nanju's sound magic can play the role of a destruction mage, but her secondary water magic and auxiliary plant magic cannot shoulder the destruction effect well. As for Ai Jiangtu and Mutingying, they have destructive magic. Not very strong. Even compared to Tang Mao, it's almost a drizzle. Some people questioned this. We know very little about Germany. Rather than being calculated by them, it's better to focus on defense at the beginning. Our defensive ability is very strong. The more they want to break through, the more exposed they will be. When we make adjustments, it will be much easier. Feng Li expressed his opinion. Moreover, Tang Mao, Mu Ningxu, and Mo Fan are the finale. No matter which one, the 3 are full of destructiveness. Of course, Tang Mao will definitely have a chance to play. As for Mu Ningxu and Mo Fan, it depends on the situation. Chapter 366, Battle against Germany. On the other side, in the seats, where the big guys were watching the game, Pang Lei suddenly remembered something and asked, Hanji, didn't you say that you had something to announce to the whole country? Hanji looked calm and shook his head. No hurry, it won't be too late to announce it when Tang Mao comes on the court. Pang Lei suddenly thought of something, and then wondered, the broadcast team wants you to be a guest, and explain the game to everyone. Do you plan to tell them then? Hanji nodded, and then sighed. Yes, some things are meant to be said, but for some reasons, they have been delayed until now. Pang Lei was really puzzled. What was it that made Hanji support Tang Mao so strongly? Then he said, I still don't understand why you asked Zhu Huayan to apologize to Tang Mao. This is almost impossible. Could it be that Tang Mao has made some great contribution? Hanji only talked about Tang Mao's matter with the great speaker Xiao Zheng at that time, and Xiao Zheng also agreed to make it public. Pang Lei and the other people sitting there didn't hear it. Similarly, there are indeed not many people who know about the affairs of the ancient capital, and even if there are, they are keeping their mouths shut. You will understand when the time comes. Then, Hanji snorted again and said, Zhu Huayan has become more and more excessive in recent years. She has been using her power to constantly win over others. It's time to teach her a lesson. Pang Lei was confused and had a black line on his head. However, Hanji was determined not to say it, and he had no choice. He could only say, I don't know what your so-called lesson is, nor do I know where your confidence comes from. But the news that Zhu Huayan judged Tang Mao to be wicked seems to have been spread by some people with ulterior motives. Recently, he has indeed been in the spotlight. His behavior in the treasure hunt is not illegal, but it is not right. Moreover, the impact on you is also huge. Hanji also understood that Pang Lei was concerned about him. He smiled and said, don't worry, all her methods will only bring shame upon herself in the end. Pang Lei heard this and said that he would wait and see the show. At this time, all the contestants had entered the venue. On the German side, the leader was a destruction mage named Redi. His outfit was a bit strange, with a red turban on his head and clothes with purple gold patterns and silver white grids. Although his clothes were so bright, his expression was very stiff and wooden. He had been expressionless since he stepped onto the stage. But even though his expression was not in place, he still attracted cheers from the audience as soon as he came on stage. There was nothing else, just his powerful destruction magic, so that everyone had no way to ignore it. On the German team, a woman with several obvious black moles on her face said unhappily after seeing the lineup of the Chinese side, Redi, it seems that these Orientals don't take us seriously. Everyone understood what the woman with black moles said. It was nothing more than that the lineup of the Chinese side did not look that strong. At least none of the people who had shown great style before came up, which was simply a bit arrogant. This is the finals, and each country will basically show 100% of its strength. China is also a dark horse this year, making it to the top 8. But as a country that has not entered the finals for so many years, they did not go all out in the first game, but were so loose and casual. The Germans did not understand what these Orientals were thinking. They even doubted whether the leader of this team was mentally deficient. Could it be that they really thought that these few crooked people could compete with their ancient, powerful, and rarely failed people? Of course, AI Jiangtu was still worthy of their attention. After all, his previous performances were not much worse than Th's. Well, I think their so-called modesty and low-keyness are actually just giving us a chance to win easily. Let's let them taste our strength, not give them a chance to replace and cripple all 5 members of their team in one breath, and make a quick decision so that we can save more magic power for tomorrow's game. One of the Ice Mage team members said, don't be careless. The other side may be deliberately testing us. Germany's captain, Sen, also spoke up. He didn't think that the leader who could command a team that reached the quarterfinals was a fool. He must have his reasons for making such an arrangement. He even felt that the other side was not being low-key, but wanted to test us. The two teams were separated by 150 meters, and the diameter of the entire Golden Gauze battlefield was more than 300 meters. Walking into it, it was like being in a desert. It was obviously a Venice surrounded by water, but it exuded a dry and hot air. The battlefield simulation was quite realistic. The players of both sides stood on 2 hills respectively. The hills were not very undulating. As the magic on both sides began to surge, the sand settled on the hill slowly flew up. Then the sand flew up, and the sand became more and more, gradually forming a piece of sand cloud above the German team. The sand cloud was obviously also controlled by a magician and their team. It complemented the power of wind, and gave the German team a huge protection. Seeing this, Zhao Manan was naturally unwilling to be outdone. As a destruction mage, he might not be a big deal. But, in terms of defense, he couldn't be called a tortoiseshell mage for nothing, right? Seeing the other side set up a defensive barrier, Zhao Manan naturally wouldn't just stand there and watch. He stomped his feet heavily on the sand dunes, and with his own control, he made the golden sand under his feet into a series of solid high walls, and finally drew the shape of a sand bunker. In a moment, the 5 people stood on the sand bunker, standing in the defensive fortress. If those destruction magics wanted to hurt them, they had to destroy the sand bunker first. At this time, Zeomanian also began to show the auxiliary power of a local tyrant. I don't know what magic weapon was used, but I saw that the bunker seemed to have been strengthened a lot. At least the defense power must be increased by more than 2 times. This ugly bunker can play a defensive role? Jiang Shaoxu said with a little disdain. Your man is not handsome, can't he give you a sense of security? Zeomanian immediately retorted. Jiang Shaoxu naturally refused to do it when he heard this. As the saying goes, beauty is in the eyes of the beholder. How could she tolerate this dog saying that? You know nothing. Tang Mao is manly, unlike you who only know how to flirt with yourself all day long. Chapter 367, Battle Against Germany, Part 2. Stop arguing. It's the second level of Skyflame Funeral. Hellfire. Nanju was always looking up, and when she found the other party attacking, she immediately reminded the 2 people who were arguing. Unlike the first level of Skyflame Funeral, this second level of Hellfire, after it was blasted out, there was only one Hellfire stone in the sky. As it got closer to the ground, you would find that this Hellfire was extremely huge, and the whole flint would even roar like a hellish devil. Unlike the red flames you usually see, this funeral Hellfire stone is dark green, and the firelight crown formed outside the Hellfire stone is also completely dark green. Boom. With a loud noise, the Hellfire stone rushed up an astonishing sand tide. The sand and gravel flying into the air were directly turned into nothing under this forest green flame, including the solid defense forged by Zeomanian, which also collapsed in that instant. The Hellfire light crown exploded, and a terrifying Hellfire shockwave was surging. The power swept across half of the stadium, and even shook the outer barrier. Their formations were scattered under the powerful flames. No one expected that the German team would use such amazing fire skills without even ordinary probing magic. After the attack, the Chinese government was in a state of extreme embarrassment. The Hellfire storm that had been set off took a long time to calm down. Zeomanian's face was covered with sand and there were signs of burns on his body. After getting up, he said in confusion, "What the hell, it's almost catching up with the output of Tang Mao, that B.T. Mutingying, who was also bombed, had a disheveled look at this time. She was extremely angry and cursed. Can you, the defense mage, be more useless?" Compared to Mutingying's abuse, AI Jiang reminded that destruction mage is a little bit wrong. Zeomanian, you should strengthen it one more layer next time. His magic may have some talent bonus, which makes some of his defenses weaker. Nanai also said immediately. Before Jiang Shaoxu could start to rant, he saw the green flame appear again. This time, the fire did not come from the sky, but formed a long fire python, which flew over with a thick and huge body. He immediately reminded, "Stop talking nonsense, the other party has made another move." The speed of the constellation was also extremely fast. Although there was only one fire python, it was formed by the control force, but it was really like a huge monster, burning with green flames all over its body, with its mouth wide open, and its long body burning for dozens of meters. Zeomanian's body was surrounded by a gorgeous and clear water constellation, and he said in disbelief, "I still don't believe it." Then, the light of the constellation flashed, and a sky curtain barrier suddenly stood up. The complete crystal blue made the water sky curtain full of blessing power. Totem mark. Then, he used the wooden fish vessel he got when he first arrived in Japan without reservation. Although he had not yet been recognized by Bezier, he could still use the power of the wooden fish. The totem barrier took on the shape of ancient characters, and was imprinted on the water curtain barrier released by Zeomanian. This double layer of protection, even if Tang Mao used his strongest thunder system, it would not be possible to blast it open with one blow. This time, Zeomanian said confidently, "I want to see if he can break through my defense this time." The flaming green python also rushed directly, and the water barrier suddenly shook. Just when Zeomanian thought that the flaming python would definitely collapse, the body of the flaming python passed through the water curtain barrier and rushed straight to the team. The flaming python rushed over, and there was another scorched earth and a mess. The team suddenly became completely out of formation. In order to avoid the flaming python's frenzy, they had to retreat. Zeomanian himself was also a little dumbfounded. He couldn't even believe it when he saw the giant flaming python wantonly destroying the sand dunes. Fuck. Zeoman, are you stupid? What are you doing? Hearing his teammates' doubts, Zeoman wanted to refute, but he couldn't. After all, he didn't know what was going on. Because the water sky curtain barrier was still there, how did the fire python get to them? This was completely against the common sense of magic. Nanju reacted quickly and said to everyone, defense magic seems to be ineffective against his destruction skills, or his destruction magic can penetrate elemental defenses. It must be related to his natural talent. It's been the second time. Everyone didn't understand why Zeoman's sandcastle didn't work the first time. This second time, the fire python even passed through the water barrier. It was obvious that it was not Zeoman's defense ability that was not good, but the opponent's magic characteristics. Hearing Nanju say this, Zeoman's heart suddenly sank. After all, if his defense didn't work, he would be almost useless. I was thinking of shining, but now? Question mark? Nanju didn't care about the blow to Zeoman, but looked at AI Jiangtu and said, Jiang Shaoxu and I will restrict him together. Old AI, you'd better put enough pressure on the others. Jiang Shaoxu is a mind mage, and his control is also very strong. However, this does not mean that it will definitely work. After all, the other party has come this far, so naturally they must have a way to prevent the mind system. So, she could only go together, but in this way, the Chinese team would have to use 2 people to contain one. The remaining 3 people had to deal with the 4 German team members, but now they had no choice, so they could only do this. Seeing the 3 people from the Chinese team rushing over, the woman with several black moles on her face sneered, these people really overestimate their own abilities. They actually want to fight 3 against 4. They don't really think that they can do it after standing out in the elimination and treasure hunting competitions, right? Then, she quickly locked her eyes on Muting Ying, who was also a student of the female academy, and then said, in 10 minutes, I will deal with that female ice mage. Obviously, in her eyes, Muting Ying's strength was nothing. The captain of the German team, after reminding be careful, focused on AI Jiangtu, and kept approaching with steady steps. In the previous game, Sen smelled the iron-blooded aura of a soldier from this Chinese space mage, which was quite obvious. There is an essential difference between students who come from military schools and students who come from magic schools. Students from military schools are not a bit lax, nor do they have the arrogance of youth. They exude a serious and solemn attitude in the face of everything. Therefore, when encountering such an opponent, the game is not just a game, but a battlefield. P.S. I write when I have time, nothing else, just for the rewards from all the old friends during this period. Thank you, and finally, please subscribe, this is the main point! Exclamation mark. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 368, Gentle as Water Munigio. Sen noticed AI Jiangtu early on, and AI Jiangtu also noticed Senator. After all, the captain of the German team was not the destruction wizard Redi, but the burly Sen. Sen took an offensive stance. He approached the Chinese team's camp and used some unique elementary and intermediate magic as a test and signal to show that he wanted to fight with AI Jiangtu. However, AI Jiangtu also knew that they were at a disadvantage at the moment. He couldn't compete with the opponent, and his main task was to contain him. Seeing this, Sen had to give up the idea of a showdown and ordered his team members to attack together. His words had absolute executive power in the team. With his order, layer after layer of magic halos rose up, and the magic surges made the space tremble slightly. Roar. Under the sand, a sand mountain inexplicably rose from the ground, and a roar that shook the eardrums came out. Yellow sand slid down the spine of the monster like a waterfall, and the huge and ferocious head raised up. Then there was another roar, and the sand and dust instantly turned into a dust storm. In the pervasive yellow mist, it took a moment for people to see it clearly. It was a white rock dragon. The white and hard skin of granite made it look like a giant statue that came to life, but the joints, head, and dragon eyes that were shining with fierce light made it look extremely dangerous and breathtaking. The ice mage in the German team smiled coldly, stepped on an ice block, and slid to a high place, and landed on the shoulder of the white rock dragon very casually. Then, the Bay D sub-dragon took a heavy step, and saw that the rocky mountain shield made by Zao Manan was like a giant mechanical machine. He directly rammed it with his body. With a boom, Zao Manan's rocky mountain shield turned into a pile of wasteland, with broken stones everywhere. Then the sub-dragon opened his mouth and sprayed fiercely. The dragon's breath turned into a terrible petrifying force, covering them at an accelerated speed. The terrible dragon's breath almost turned Zao Manan, Ai Jiangtu, and Mutingying into sculptures. Fortunately, Zao Manan used the constellation depiction at the critical moment, the water sky curtain for defense, and the totem mark to ease a little. The sub-dragon's strength is higher than that of the pseudo-dragon. They have the true bloodline inheritance of the dragon clan, and the dragon power they have obtained is also very close to that of the real dragon. Adult dragons are even around the monarch level, and some strong dragons are monarchs. Fortunately, this dragon is not fully mature. Otherwise, even if there are 2 or 3 times more people, the Chinese team will never be able to subdue a dragon. After all, once it reaches the monarch level and has the ability of a dragon, its strength is several times stronger than that of ordinary monsters. Although Zao Manan used all kinds of defenses, this dragon has already pinned him down, and he can't be distracted. Mutingying is even more tragic. She was originally dealing with the German mole girl, but because Zao Manan was suppressed by the dragon, she was also resisted by the opponent's ice mage. This caused the original one-on-one to inexplicably become a one-on-two? Immediately, he turned around and shouted angrily, "Zao Manan, are you worth a beast of others?" Zao Manan was so angry that he almost vomited blood when he heard this. But even if he was unhappy, he couldn't really fight with Mutingying at the moment. Then, his body was shining, and he used his strongest light magic. Zao Manan turned the high-level light magic into pieces of light scales. Countless light scales formed golden armor on the 5 of them, protecting everyone in the team. At the same time, he also added a layer of totem mark. Obviously, he was stimulated by Mutingying. With Zao Manan's defense bonus, the situation was stabilized. Seeing this scene, Tang Mao shrugged a little bored, looked at Mutingying beside him and said, "Jiao, can you know?" Before Tang Mao finished speaking, Mutingying interrupted directly. Although she didn't know what Tang Mao was going to say, just looking at this dishonest claw, Mutingying was sure that it was definitely not a good thing. However, seeing Tang Mao speak, Mutingying also thought of the previous things, and the news she saw not long ago. "Tang Mao, you." Seeing Mutingying's worried look, he already knew what this girl wanted to say. He interrupted, "Don't worry about me. Hanji is not a fool. If he didn't have a definite reason, why would he go to the speaker's secretary just for me? But, forget it." Although Mutingying wanted to help him, she was not Jiang Shaoxu. The Mu family didn't have the strength to do so. After all, they were just a noble family. The most important thing was that she was not the most prominent one in the noble family. She just joined the government, increased her fame, and gained some of her own private rights. "If I really have no future, would you still be willing to follow me?" Although this question is very stupid, sometimes you still ask it. Mutingying didn't say anything nonsense, just a simple HMM. Tang Mao took the opportunity to reach out and said, "I know Jiao is the best." There were so many people around, and Tang Mao's excessiveness instantly destroyed the atmosphere just now. Mutingying said a little unhappy, "Get out, Jiao. How can you do this? You just said that you will never leave me." Tang Mao didn't care at all. Not only that, but also moved closer. The movements of his hands were much bigger. The bulge was already bulging, and it was about to burst out. Mutingying was not such a shameless person. She lowered her head in shame and anger. He whispered, "If you keep doing this, I will really ignore you. Then I will kiss you." Tang Mao seemed to have her in his hands. Not only did he not distance himself from her, but he also said teasingly, "You." Nigio was a little impatient, but just like what this scumbag thought, he did not make any actual movements. Obviously, she was really in his hands. Helplessly, she had to ignore him and look away. Her silence did not bring her to a stop, but instead made her more aggressive. For a moment, Nigio felt that she would be fucked on the chair at any time. I miss you so much. Seeing her like this, Tang Mao wanted to bully her even more. He leaned his head against her fragrant shoulder and said softly, "That's enough." Nigio's voice was extremely soft at this time. Even though he was a little angry, he didn't sound very harsh. He was still as gentle as water space teleport. At this moment, a silver light flashed around Tang Mao, and the next moment the two of them had disappeared from here. Chapter 369, Battle Against Germany, Part 3. When Nigio reacted, the two were already on the top floor. Of course, they had already left the competition venue. Nigio was wearing a thin white short-sleeved shirt today. As long as you have good eyesight, you can almost see that, because of the large floating just now, the black one has already shown signs of detachment, which is why Tang Mao took her away. If you think wrongly, please face the wall, and think about it. Now is the competition period. No matter how many ideas you have, it is impossible not to be right now. Nigio was obviously the one who thought too much, and there was no one around, so a burst of angry little punches fell on Tang Mao. For this painless beating, Tang Mao just smiled slightly. What's the big deal? It doesn't hurt, and it seems that this little girl hasn't acted like a spoiled child to him like this for a long time. It seems that these obstacles have been created after the incident with Jiang Shaoxu. Don't be angry, I can't help it. Besides, if someone sees it, it's not just you who will suffer. Tang Mao used a little force and hugged her in his arms. Nigio struggled for a moment, then gave up. You bastard. Yeah, I'm a bastard. I hate you. I don't hate you. The two of them kept talking, one sentence at a time, until more than 10 minutes later, they returned to the competition venue. Zhu Jiming, who was watching the game, saw this and said with a hint of sarcasm, "At this time, you still have the mood to talk about love? If you are provoking me, I don't mind destroying you first." Tang Mao responded coldly to the little brat's nagging. Although Zhu Jiming gritted his teeth, he was really a little scared. Moreover, in his opinion, Tang Mao was finished. There was no need to care about him. After he came to the country and grew up, wouldn't it be easy to deal with Tang Mao? After seeing Zhu Jiming, the scumbag, shut up, Tang Mao looked back at the venue. During the period of absence just now, the German team had already replaced one player. According to Muningsu, it was Jiang Shaoxu who suddenly became powerful. Thinking of the mind magic weapon he got in Peru, Tang Mao did not find it strange. Jiang Shaoxu's mind magic power has been greatly enhanced. Even if he is not on guard, he may disturb her mentality sometimes. So, this is why he left here just now. However, after the opponent changed the team members, the original Jiang Shaoxu cooperated with Nanju to contain. It was instantly disintegrated. The opponent had a mind mage who kept harassing. Although his mind magic was not as good as Jiang Shaoxu, she had no chance to interrupt Redi. As for Nanju, she was also contained by the new wind mage. Redi's destructive magic came immediately, and the violent lightning and scorching flames intertwined, bombarding the 5 people of the Chinese team. This guy's magic can penetrate the defense skills, and Zhao Manan had to use the defensive magic tools at the bottom of the box. Fortunately, as the son of China's richest man, he had a lot of magic tools. The opponent's destruction magic ignored the defense skills, but the magic tools' defense could not penetrate, which allowed Zhao Manan to stay on the battlefield for a while. And now, no one on the German side thinks Zhao Manan is a burden. After all, having a lot of money is also a kind of strength. Redi saw that Zhao Manan had magic tools one after another, as if he could not use them all, with a hint of anger on his face. At the same time, he was full of envy. There are probably not many people in the world who can have so many magic tools and magic weapons, right? On weekdays, when encountering some not so outstanding national players, Redi can kill them in one move before the opponent has time to defend. Today, encountering this RMB player Turtle Shell Mage, it is really maddening. But Redi is not a stubborn person. Knowing that he can't break Zhao Manan's defense, he didn't continue to waste it. After all, even if his magic power is exhausted, it is really not necessarily that he can defeat Zhao Manan. Immediately, he changed his attack and aimed at Nanju. Zhao Manan wanted to rescue her, but the dark energy that suddenly appeared blocked his actions. As a defensive mage, the most taboo thing is to be imprisoned. Even if you don't die, if others leave you alone and trap you in the maze, ruled by CE, you will be a useless person. At the same time, Nanju was also bombed. Of course, Nanju is not a useless person who can't withstand a single blow, but she is not as rich as Zhao Manan, who has endless magic tools to use. Nanju actually still wants to hold on, at least until Zhao Manan breaks through the control. In this way, everything will still be hopeful. Unfortunately, although she wanted to defend, the German destruction mage didn't give her this opportunity at all. Coupled with the wind attribute mage, Nanju was bombed out soon. Huaxia team changes players. Zhao Manan was in the dark maze. She finally broke free from the shackles, but couldn't get out at all. It just so happened that not long after, the referee's loud announcement was heard. Zhao Manan just came out and found Nanju on the field, and then Muningsu came on the field. Tang Mao was supposed to be on the field, but he knew that Muningsu needed a chance to show herself on the field. Muningsu was not sure about fighting against the opponent's destruction mage, but Tang Mao told her that she just needed to go all out. Tang Mao spent 1 billion yuan from the reward from the treasure hunt to add a new wine type domain soul seed for her. 1 billion yuan is not a small amount of money, and Muningsu is not hypocritical. After getting this wine type soul seed, her strength has also been greatly improved. After she came on the field, she condensed the wings of wind and quickly came to Ai Jiangtu and others. When Muting Ying saw Muningsu on the field, to be honest, she was extremely dissatisfied, because she knew that this woman's appearance on the court meant that her glory would be crushed once again. Muting Ying, be careful. Just as she was thinking, she heard Ai Jiangtu's loud shout. She even saw Ai Jiangtu rushing here with full firepower. But when the fire python fell, she was still slow to react. When she came to her senses, she was rescued by the assistant referee. When she found that she was carried down by the assistant referee, she shouted angrily, "I'm fine, put me down, I still have magic tools to use." Unfortunately, the assistant referee said without mercy, "You have been ruled out. The assistant referee will rescue according to the situation. Even if his judgment is wrong, the player is out." Muting Ying's situation is between rescue and non-rescue. Maybe in the eyes of the younger assistant referee, Muting Ying is in danger of life, so he chose to take action. And when he took action, regardless of whether Muting Ying can continue to fight, she is out. Muting Ying's face turned black. She wanted to tear the bastard assistant referee to pieces. She didn't even have the chance to use her biggest trump card, and she was just going to leave like this? And she was gone when Muningsu came on the court? Question mark. Chapter 370. Ignoring the overall situation. This was a huge humiliation for Muting Ying. Feng Li was also very upset. His face was full of ashes. This stupid woman, what time is it? She was still in a daze. Exclamation mark. Tang Mao, you go. Let's end the battle quickly. He had no choice but to continue to tolerate their stupidity. He just wanted to end the battle quickly. Tang Mao got up without saying a word and left his seat and walked away. At this time, RUID had become a barrel of explosives with flames and lightning, and would cause a terrible elemental disaster wherever he went. Without Nanju's restraint, Jiang Shaoxu was constantly harassed by the opponent's mind mage. RUID obviously felt that he was good again. Zhao Manan was blasted and looked at Ai Jiangtu and Muningsu beside him and said, "Old Ai, you and I will resist together. Give Goddess Mu time to shoot an arrow." Destruction magic? Although RUID can ignore defense, its lethality obviously needs to be improved. If Muningsu shoots this arrow, then it will be the real magic of destruction. Ai Jiangtu nodded, took a step forward, and walked to the front. The captain of the German team had already disappeared in the venue. When Muningsu rushed over, he had already thought about sending her out. Because he had seen Muningsu's strength as early as when China and R played against each other. Moreover, the opponent's useless mage was out. If he guessed correctly, the real magic of destruction should also come. During the treasure hunt, one of their team members encountered it. That fierce fire element is not comparable to Radi's fire. Moreover, it is said that fire has never been his strongest means. Thinking of this, Sen was more prepared. The battle became more and more intense, but after Tang Mao entered the field, he did not care about the battle of Ai Jiangtu and others. Instead, he rushed directly to where Jiang Shaoxu was. The moment Tang Mao, with his wings of wind spread out and full firepower, appeared, the German mind mage was killed. It all happened too fast, which meant that Tang Mao had no intention of killing. Otherwise, the German mind mage would not just faint. The assistant referees were also shocked when they saw this scene, although they also knew that Tang Mao was rushing here, not to support his teammates. But they didn't expect that he would come here in a flash. Moreover, if he had the intention to kill just now, this guy would have died directly. Tang Mao? In fact, Jiang Shaoxu herself was also shocked. She didn't expect that this guy would come here without considering the overall situation. As soon as he came on the court, the person who makes you cry will have to lie in bed for at least a month. Let's go, let's deal with the remaining bastards. He gently wiped away Jiang Shaoxu's tears, and then took her into his arms with one hand, and then the two of them took off directly. The next moment, a silver light lit up, just like before. The moment the assistant referees reacted, the two were already hundreds of meters away. Outside the court. How can Tang Mao be so careless about the overall situation? Feng Li said angrily with a dark face. No wonder he was so angry. You know, this is a team competition. 3 teammates are being suppressed, and they may even be eliminated in the next moment. In this case, this kid is still thinking about being a hero to save the beauty? Question mark? Song He also sighed slightly. In this case, this game is not good for us. Not only the 2 instructors were worried, but even many spectators started to curse. At this time, Zhao Manan had been knocked out, and Ai Jiangtu's space magic was indeed very strong, but facing the joint attack of the 4 opponents, he was really not good enough. Seeing this, Feng Li did not send Nanrong Ni up, but replaced him with Emofan. In the current situation, the healing mage is completely useless. In addition, the opponent's mind mage has been eliminated, and going up to output with full firepower is a last resort. However, by coincidence, Emofan was on the line with the opponent's substitute. Emofan was entangled by an opponent's defense mage, while Jiang Shaoxu and Ai Jiangtu had already consumed most of their energy. Muningsu was still gathering her domain, and the Huaxia government looked so precarious. There was also a lot of scolding in the audience. In the field, Tang Mao led Jiang Shaoxu, and was heading towards Ai Jiangtu and the others at full speed. German team captain Sen seemed to have noticed it, and immediately ordered the destruction mage Radi to stay here, to deal with Ai Jiangtu and Muningsu. He led the other 2 to stop Tang Mao. However, just as he finished giving the order, Tang Mao had already appeared not far behind everyone. The speed was so fast that they were all dumbfounded. Quick, stop him. Sen didn't want to see him coming to the assembly because he was not sure whether Tang Mao, who was coming at full speed, had any trump cards. However, his dark control could not catch Tang Mao with Jiang Shaoxu. The 3 of them used various magic to greet him, but they found out after the bombing that they didn't even touch him. Sen had a headache. He knew that Tang Mao was very strong, but he only knew that he was a destructive mage on the Chinese side. At most, he was half a defensive mage. After all, he had seen his ice defense. But what the hell is this speed now? Question mark? Do you want to do it so fast? Question mark? Seeing the 2 people getting closer and closer, the person next to Sen suddenly spoke in international language to provoke. I have heard that there is a destructive mage named Tang Mao in the Chinese team. Since you are on the field, don't you show it, and just want to run away. Hearing this, Sen looked at his teammates, as if they were idiots. What's the use of this boring provocation? The current situation is not good for him. Will Tang Mao not hide and fight head on? At this moment, Tang Mao, who was flashing with Jiang Shaoxu in his arms, really stopped. Since you want a head-on confrontation, then I'll satisfy you. Okay. Then let's experience the power of the Chinese team's destructive magic. The German player just said it casually, but he didn't expect Tang Mao to really stop. It has to be said that he was a little confused. However, no matter his captain, or the girl with the black mole, they all took action immediately. The powerful and impactful magic energy wave drawn by the gorgeous constellations rushed straight towards Tang Mao. Jiang Shaoxu saw that the other party had already taken action, but Tang Mao didn't mean to move. He hurriedly said, "Why are you still standing there? Hide quickly." Chapter 371. Battle against Germany. Tang Mao did not respond to what Jiang Shaoxu said, and at this moment, even the air seemed to be constantly frozen into ice. When the magic of the other three people rushed over, Tang Mao was already surrounded by a thunder domain. The ice wall was just to resist the impact, and he wanted to let the other people understand one thing from the beginning. Boom. Silent thunder deathlight. At the moment, when the ice wall dissipated, beams of lightning, with the power to destroy everything, directly dispersed the remaining power. Thundernet. Zilla. The lightning fell, but did not explode, but like a spider web, it suddenly exploded where Sen and the other two were. Almost in the blink of an eye, a large net completely wrapped up the three people. At this moment, the thunder domain around Tang Mao completely dissipated. But then, in the net, the irritable thunder element began to boil. I'm afraid it's the first time that the domain is played like this. Everyone was stunned. Sen knew that it was not good and wanted to rush out of the big net. Unfortunately, even though they were wearing magic tools, they could not withstand the lightning. When Rudy, who was with AI Jiang 2, saw this and wanted to rescue, he suddenly felt a chill. Mu Ningxu, who had just condensed the domain, had already controlled the ice element nearby, and he directly opened the double domain. When the blizzard fell, his flame could not burn at all. Ice coffin. Mu Ningxu didn't care whether he could hold on or not. As long as the opponent didn't admit defeat, he had to fight on. Damn it. Seeing this, Rudy cursed angrily. Although he was a destruction mage, his defense was not very good. Bang. He was frozen solid. At this time, Mu Ningxu suddenly drew his bow. Although the arrow did not fire, the power displayed in this domain was so powerful that even Tang Mao felt terrified. The atmosphere was originally tense, but suddenly there was a cold wind on one side and thunder on the other. Both elements reached an extreme. But neither Tang Mao nor Mu Ningxu continued to attack. The two German players tried to break through the thunder net, but no matter what they did, they couldn't do it. Of course, they also understood that this was just an opportunity given by Tang Mao. Otherwise, when the thunder net was formed, they would be burnt on the outside and tender on the inside. Sen just stayed there quietly, with no intention of moving at all, because he knew very well that the gap between the two sides was too big. Too big. It was completely on a different level. The most important thing was that the blizzard coming from the back made them feel that they could not resist it at all. We give up. Although Sen was unwilling, he didn't mean to struggle anymore. Although Tang Mao didn't cast any destruction magic to bombard, no one present was a fool. Who didn't know? How could they not know what was going on? It wasn't that Tang Mao's destruction magic was not terrifying enough, but because it was too terrifying, people were reluctant to take action. What is certain is that, if the entire lightning net explodes, they will be in trouble, now that their magic tools have been almost consumed. Even the assistant referees may not be able to help. Moreover, their destruction mage is also being targeted at this moment. Although the arrow was not shot, it is certain that, if they were hit by an arrow, what would happen? Is this guy really just a student? Damn. Although I really want to see destruction magic, why does this kind of battle that seems like a fake match also shock me so much? How powerful is this control? To stop the violent thunder that exudes destruction from attacking. The stadium was boiling all of a sudden. Although there was no fancy magic bombardment, there was no embroidery operation like Rudy, but this level of control was obviously not something that ordinary high-level mages could show. Even these old men were shocked. But, good job. Mentor Fengli was cursing just now, but now he shouted excitedly. This middle-aged man who always had a stern face was also excited at this moment. In today's game, every team member performed very well, especially Tang Mao and Munich Su. The magic power of the two almost occupied the whole field. Moreover, just suppressing without taking action, the opponent surrendered, which was really satisfying. You know, today's opponent is the powerful Germany. Those who were accusing Tang Mao of not considering the overall situation before, now like fence sitters, began to turn against each other and praised him. Xiao Zheng also grinned with a smile, and the faces of other parliamentarians were also full of smiles. Such a victory is far more refreshing and heartfelt than winning a political contest. Strength. This is the strength of one's own country. There is nothing else. China is not short of powerful people, but every national government competition is a little unsatisfactory. This also led to the fact that, in the eyes of outsiders, China was relatively weak. However, this year's crushing victory shocked almost all the people in all countries. After a period of silence, the stadium suddenly exploded, and the cheers and applause shook the entire city of Venice, and were broadcast from Venice to countless countries around the world. In front of the demons, humans are more weak, more fleeing, and more hunted like livestock. Isn't it this young magician who is full of destructive power? No matter how strong the demon's physique is, can it withstand such destructive magic? With high-level power and super-level talent, I have to admit that this kid has the capital to be arrogant. Pang Lei also felt deeply aware of this game. In the past, I only heard Jiang Yu say how powerful Tang Mao was, but it was hearsay. How could it be true to witness it with my own eyes? Considering that this person who made great contributions in the ancient capital disaster is too young, our Bell Tower Magic Association has been slow to make it public, but a favor is a favor. Even after experiencing vicissitudes of life, even if the ancient capital was really destroyed in that crisis, we ancient capital people will never forget it. Everyone, please look at this young man who just used his power to defeat the German power. It was he who made our ancient capital survive. It was also him and two other young men who jumped into the evil abyss together, bringing life to millions of people in our ancient capital. It was also he who, with his own strength, repelled thousands of undead. As the game ended, Hanji's voice, with unprecedented solemnity and touching, was transmitted to everyone's ears from the loudspeaker of the radio. After listening to what Hanji said, including Pang Lei, many people understood why Hanji cared so much about Tang Mao, and even when Zhu Huayan, the secretary of the speaker, said such words, he was so persistent and aggressive. That was because the entire ancient capital owed this young man a favor that could not be repaid with anything. Chapter 372 Irene comes to see you. After Hanji announced the end, more people were completely shocked, especially the Chinese people, many of whom fell silent. If the news of victory was already a surging wave, then the disclosure of the benefactor of the ancient capital would become a huge wave, impacting the hearts of countless people. It was not the extraordinary wizard who allowed the ancient capital to survive, but several students. Hanji, who had been silent, ignored it even if he was led by the rhythm. Instead, he had a trust in Tang Mao's strength. He chose a perfect time, so that even those who had a questioning attitude were not qualified to question it. However, Tang Mao himself did not hear these things. It was not until he got off the stage and looked at the shocked expressions of the crowd that he understood something. However, he did not react too much to this. Instead, he looked at Zhu Huayan who came here. As for the several major parliamentarians, Chief Pang Lei, Grand Speaker Xiao Zheng, and Hanji who had finished the show, they were all ignored by him. Zhu Huayan was also full of hatred at this time. Now she finally understood why Hanji would protect this young man so much, even because he was not afraid to go against him. So he was a man who made great contributions in the catastrophe of the ancient capital, although Zhu Huayan was very reluctant to believe it. However, the power displayed by Tang Mao made her have to believe it. In the end, she had to come to Tang Mao in an extremely awkward manner, and then bowed deeply with an apologetic look on her face. I'm really sorry. I apologize to you for my stupidity and my nephew's lack of vision. Zhu Huayan's words were quite light, and compared with the arrogant old woman's attitude before, it was completely different. It must be said that the speed at which these politicians change their faces is really dog speed. The secretary of the speaker. This is a big man who is a little higher than Hanji, the president of the Bell Tower Magic Association, but he apologized to a young man in front of the influx of interviewers and other members. If it weren't for the fact that Tang Mao was a benefactor of the ancient capital, seeing this scene would definitely be a fantasy. For this silly old woman, Tang Mao didn't mean to give her a chance at all. He said calmly, a person like me who has bad intentions and can be easily bribed, how can it be worth an apology from the speaker? I can't bear it. Who knows what kind of revenge I will suffer in the future. Zhu Huayan was dumbfounded when she heard this. This is too much? Question mark. It's obviously to mess with me, right? Tang Mao didn't care about her at all. Now Zhu Huayan really couldn't move forward or retreat, especially now that so many people were watching. Her mentality was about to explode. When Hanji announced the matter of the ancient capital, Zhu Huayan was actually dumbfounded. The news that Zhu Huayan, the secretary of the speaker, commented on Tang Mao's bad intentions had long been spread. Since the domestic topics were all focused on the competition among world universities, this kind of thing was published by the media at once. Even because she wanted to discipline Hanji, she also made a big fuss about it. Unexpectedly, she was killed by Hanji in the end. In the instant when the news spread, the secretary of the speaker was separated from all the senior officials. Seeing that Tang Mao was about to add insult to injury, Zhu Huayan had no choice but to look at Xiaozeng. Speaker, you see, this is actually a misunderstanding. As the secretary of the speaker, you should be responsible for your words. Since Tang Mao does not accept your apology, I hope you can calm down this resentment yourself. Xiaozeng said calmly. In fact, he had already guessed that there would be such a result, but the public's sweeping force of the crusade really shocked Xiaozeng. He might have been the one who said this, and would be pulled down. Zhu Huayan was finished. Similarly, Zhu Jiming was directly kicked out of the Guofu team. Dan Fanglai, the substitute, got the opportunity. Dan Fanglai couldn't believe this gift from heaven. He even wondered if he was dreaming. After leaving here, Tang Mao went to see Muningsu. This time, she seemed to have completely mastered her own power, or it might be because the arrow was not shot, so her body did not suffer any backlash. Muningsu said that she had no problem, but Tang Mao was extremely concerned. Facing his kindness, Muningsu wanted to refuse, but found that her refusal was quite powerless. The first round of the competition ended just like that. A total of 4 countries entered the winners group, namely Greece, Britain, China, and Egypt. The losers group was the United States, Canada, Germany, and France. The first round of the competition had ended in the competition between the Chinese team and the German team. There were only 2 days of rest time, but Tang Mao was worried, because when he was concerned about Muningsu, he was forced to be called out by Irene. When Tang Mao came on the court, that behavior deeply stimulated Irene. Although the scene was very romantic, the woman was not her. In fact, normally, at this time, both of them should be recovering their magic power. After all, the previous consumption was extremely large. At least Irene also experienced a big battle. Tang Mao was different. Even if he was exhausted, 1 day was enough to recover. This was also a huge advantage. Tang Mao. Looking at Irene, who was bulging and angry, Tang Mao smiled, as if nothing had happened, and said to Irene, you just finished a game. Why don't you recover your magic power? You bastard. Irene was even more unhappy with his attitude. She asked again, what is your relationship with that woman? Tang Mao had guessed her intention long ago, so when he came out, he had already thought of the answer. However, this was the first time he had seen Irene like this. Obviously, the girl was really angry. Friend, didn't I tell you? Although she said so, she added the word woman in her heart before she opened her mouth. However, as long as some window paper is still strong and not broken, he will never choose to be the first person to break it. Although it is too much to be confused, but everything has been said. What should be done next? Question mark. So, for this kind of thing, I naturally chose to deal with it vaguely. You lied. Although Aileen looked innocent, she was not a 3-year-old child. When their game ended, she paid attention to the game between China and Germany. That kind of affectionate look, the kind of disregard for the overall situation to save Jiang Xiaoxu, and this was just a game. No matter how you look at it, it doesn't seem like something a friend can do. Chapter 373 Battle. The most basic trust between people. Tang Mao looked at Irene with an innocent face and said in a light voice, "Don't mention it." For a moment Irene felt that she was really overthinking it. Seeing some hesitation on Irene's face, Tang Mao did not speak. After all, if you say too much at this time, it will be more difficult to recover if you are found out in the future. Therefore, he can be vague, but he must not choose to continue lying. "Yes, I'm sorry, I blamed you wrongly." Irene felt that she was a little rash, like a little girl who did something wrong, and said with her head down, "It's okay, brother, I'm not that kind of petty person." Tang Mao responded without blushing or panting, and he took Irene in his arms very easily and comforted her. He thought silently in his heart, "Irene, I'm sorry, I should actually say it." After getting the response she wanted deep in her heart, Irene's mood recovered a little. Then he whispered, "I'm going back to meditate. Maybe I'll meet you in 2 days. Are you ready to admit defeat?" Irene always felt offended by what Tang Mao said. However, thinking back to the treasure hunt, the strength shown by this man made her feel as if there was really no victory. If not, how could Irene be conquered so easily? But although she felt it was impossible, Irene still said very seriously, "I will do my best, and I think my teammates will do the same. I don't want you to show mercy when the time comes." Tang Mao looked at Irene and nodded. In fact, he never meant to show mercy. The girl's imagination was a bit rich. After staying here for a while, Irene left. Although she was reluctant, she really needed to go back to recuperate and restore her magic power. Moreover, Irene was sure that if she didn't leave, the rest of the night would be wasted. On the third day, the second round of the finals finally began. The 4 teams in the winners group competed against each other, and the 4 teams in the losers group competed against each other, and then the winners and losers were judged. However, in the losers group, no matter who won or lost, it had nothing to do with Tang Mao and his team. The good ranking they were competing for meant that their country would get more resources. China's performance in the first round made people have high hopes, and in the second round, by chance, they were directly drawn to the British team, which everyone thought was likely to be the champion. Britain's strength is extremely strong, especially the number 1 ZHELUO. Countless people gave the evaluation that he was unfathomable. Even as his teammate, Irene always felt that the other party was like an alien. Up to now, he has not yet shown his full strength. And how strong ZHELUO is still a mystery. The British team is very strong. Not only the first place ZHELUO, but also 2 of the top 10 places. The 7th place belongs to them, and the 9th place also belongs to them. Faced with such a situation, Feng Li only wanted to give up this game. There was no other way. Now Jiang Shaoxu, Zhao Manyan, Ai Jiangtu, and Nanju have not recovered yet. Only Tang Mao, Mu Ningxu, Mu Nujiro, Mo Fan, Mu Tingying, Nanrongni, Jiang Yu, Guan Yu, and Dong Fang Lai can play. Not to mention that these people have no rules. Even their defense is weak. Although the destructive power is full, if the opponent's mind mage takes action to restrain the destruction mage, how can they fight? Boss, why give up? Just keep fighting. Besides, the so-called powerful countries are just like that in my opinion. Nothing great. Tang Mao naturally didn't want to give up. He wanted to win the championship in one go. This is what he wanted. The main reason was that he boasted to Irene. If he gave up now, how could he stand up in the future? Nonsense. Feng Li's face was stern, and then he scolded heavily. Fighting alone, your strength is indeed unquestionable. However, this is a team battle, and the opponent this time may be the champion team. The most important thing is that the defense mage and the mind mage in our team still need time to recover. At this time, fighting against a strong country is not fun. Once you are targeted by a mind mage, even if you are strong, what's the use? If you try your best and still lose in this competition, then the top 3 will be out of our reach. Do you understand? Tang Mao shrugged and said, "You are boosting others' ambitions and destroying your own prestige. Not only must we fight this battle, but I can guarantee that I will win. Why don't you understand?" Feng Li said, a little unhappy. Do you really think that the mind mage is just eating dry food? If you can fight until now, there will be no such thing as a slacker. Boss, let me tell you a secret. The influence of the mind mage at this stage on me is actually not very big. Tang Mao's mental power is now almost level 8. In addition, he can depict constellations quickly. If he can send the opponent's psychic mage to the stage as soon as he starts, then even the slightest itch won't be there. Feng Li wanted to say something else, but Tang Mao didn't mean to continue chatting with him. Bullshit powerful country, bullshit strongest. They are also students of the national government, but they are called the strongest in front of him. This is simply disrespectful to his father. Feng Li had no choice but to look at the others. It seemed that he was asking, who is willing to play? Mu Ningxu was the first to stand up. She had no reason to distrust Tang Mao. Moreover, whether she wins or loses, she also believes that what is coming will come sooner or later. The second person is naturally Mu Ningxu. It is all because of Tang Mao's help that she can get to where she is now. There was even a period of time in the middle when this man didn't get involved in all the training because of her. Moreover, she didn't think that she would lose with Tang Mao. Zheluo is a magic genius, very powerful. Is Tang Mao a loser? His strength is even more incomprehensible and almost beyond the cognition of normal people. After the two women stood up, the others also said they were willing to fight. Not for anything else, they bet that Tang Mao could be more perverted. In the end, Feng Li had no choice but to agree. The list of players was also confirmed. In addition to Tang Mao, they were Mu Ningxu, Mu Ningxu, Jian Yu, and Feng Li. As for Mo Fan, Guan Yu, and Mu Tingying, who were stronger, they were left behind by Feng Li. Not for anything else, he still couldn't be sure that Tang Mao and others could definitely beat the British team. Moreover, this was not the end, so of course he couldn't just bet everything. Chapter 374, Battle against Britain. The British side was very prepared, even though China had been lagging behind in the past few years. But since it became a dark horse this year, it naturally cannot be underestimated. The 5 British players were Zheluo, Sistan, Irene, Hibbert, and Elron. Zheluo has not yet been fully fired up and ranks first in the national government rankings. And Sistan, as the vice captain, is also ranked in the top 10. The rest of the people are also elites among elites. Judging from the lineups of both sides, China is somewhat arrogant. After both sides entered the venue and the game started, Irene said, "Protect me." She knew very well that Tang Mao would definitely pick her first. After all, she was the only one who could cause him trouble. Although Zheluo was very deep, in Irene's opinion, he would not be Tang Mao's opponent. Irene, what are you afraid of? You don't think that they can beat us with just a few people on the field, right? Hibbert said with some disdain. Although it was a bit arrogant, it seemed to be a fact. After all, the opponent is not the strongest Linup of China. There is not even a defensive mage. So, in their opinion, Irene's worries are a bit redundant. Even the captain, Zheluo, does not think that China has anything to fear. They can say that they have already won this game. However, when he saw Irene preparing to use the spirit shadow of the Mermaid Emperor, he was even more dumbfounded. Irene, what are you doing? Zishiden was also full of confusion. The opponent has not appeared yet, and you are ready to use this level of magic weapon. Are you kidding me? Question mark? Swoosh. At this moment, Zheluo suddenly realized that something was wrong. When he turned around, he saw that Tang Mao had actually come to their side. You know, the game has just started, and they only talked for a while. The rest of the people were also stunned, but at the same time they felt that Tang Mao was too arrogant. One person came here alone. Is this a mysterious confidence in his own strength? But now, no matter whether he is mysteriously confident or what, several people immediately started to have a magical aura. After all, the speed at which he arrived in an instant proved that he was not a villain. Irene hurriedly said, "Protect me." She knew very well that Tang Mao's target was definitely her, and she also knew that, if she wanted to be effective, the only way was to use this magic weapon to protect herself. Zheluo smiled confidently and said, "He can't move while I'm here." However, before Zheluo finished speaking, Tangmao had already appeared in front of Irene. With the shadow system plus the shadow cloak and the speed of the wind system, even a superclass wind system mage might not be faster than Tangmao. What about a little Zheluo? Are you trying to say that I can't move her while you're here? After Tangmao appeared beside Irene, he interrupted her. Irene also reacted very quickly and wanted to use mental magic. However, in front of Tangmao's powerful mental power, her mind magic was completely useless. Zilla. At the same time, this area was covered with dark clouds. As the thunder clouds continued to condense, the powerful field suppression made everyone stunned. Baby, I won't hurt you. Go down by yourself. After saying that, Tangmao directly broke the special protection for the finals. Simple and rough, a beam of blue water lit up and turned into a barrier that wrapped around the whole body, protecting Irene. Because Tangmao's thunder power was perfect, Irene was unscathed. But because of this, Zheluo and others were slapped in the face. The referees who came here to help were all a little surprised. To be honest, they were really shocked by his speed just now. Fortunately, this was just a game. Fortunately, this kid knew how to cherish women. Otherwise, I can't imagine how badly this British Grand Duke would suffer. Less than a minute after the start, Irene was off the court. This made the arrogant British guys who were just arrogant slapped in the face. Damn it, since you came thousands of miles to give yourself up, it's not our fault. Zheluo finished speaking, and the wings of wind emerged, and then two summoned beasts rushed out from a messy forest. One was Zheluo's dimensional summoned beast, the Eagle Lord, and the other was the Earth Evil Worm. These two summoned beasts were both at the commander level. Even the Earth Evil Worm has reached the level of an intermediate commander. But Tangmao obviously disdained it and said in a light voice, "You don't think that you are the only one who is excellent in all departments?" After the words fell, the Shadow Demon Tiger also suddenly rushed out. At the same time, the night fell. The high-level magic of the Shadow System, CI Domination, instantly enveloped this place. As the dark energy spread, the momentum of the Shadow Demon Tiger soared. Even though there were two summoned beasts of Zheluo here, they were still suppressed by its ferocity. Hibbert hurriedly said, "Not good. Its summoned beast has become stronger in this CI domination." As he said, they wanted to escape from here. But how could Tangmao do as they wished? Gravity. Under the suppression of his powerful space magic, several people seemed to be unable to move. That assistant said angrily, "Let's do it together. I don't believe how he can deal with the four of us alone." Zheluo and the others thought it was reasonable. For a while, strong winds, thunder, and fire waves blasted Tangmao directly, and Tangmao was not afraid of their attacks. The ice wall appeared out of thin air in front of him. Boom. Squeak. Pala. The ice wall did not resist all the skills, and he himself was a little shocked. And then the wind blew around him. It seemed that Zheluo's domain power began to show. Although he was a little shocked, he did not have any emotional fluctuations for his counterattack. After all, it was regarded as the team of the champion country by many people. If it was really easy to deal with it right away, it would be a ghost. The reason why he could be beaten by Irene right at the beginning was entirely because the other party did not understand him. At this moment, a hurricane was formed in an instant, with a diameter of more than 3 meters and a height of more than 20 meters, which was not inferior to a high-strength wind-based destruction magic. After Tangmao looked around, lightning appeared around him. Boom boom silent thunder death light. For the strong wind that wanted to disrupt him, Tangmao not only did not wait for his teammates to arrive, instead, he bombarded it head-on with thunder. Although Zheluo's wind domain is very strong, it is really nothing in front of Tangmao's purple sky domain. After all, after swallowing the tyrant wild thunder, once his thunder domain is formed, any element nearby can't cause any wind or waves. P.S. Is there no one to follow up? Chapter 375 Dad beats his son. Boom boom. When the thunder exploded, the hurricane that had just formed was directly shattered. When the hurricane dissipated, Tangmao began to attack. But just when his thunder was gathering, the dispersing hurricane emerged more fiercely. Damn, annoying thing. After cursing, Tangmao used the dark power ruled by CE to add a layer of black energy to himself. Then he ignored these hurricanes. After all, he had the protection of dark energy and ice magic. What was this small hurricane? Lightning beam. Zheluo saw Tang Mao's attack coming towards him, and the color of his eyes changed, instantly changing into a completely chaotic color, looking like a dark space without any stars in the universe. Chaos Gate. Tang Mao's extremely powerful and fast lightning beam, after touching the turbid surface, disappeared completely as if entering another world. The destructive breath, that should have been surging, did not even have a trace. Zheluo was still standing there unharmed, and even the grass and trees, where he was, were intact. However, because of Tang Mao's spatial gravity suppression, he was still unable to move. There was a light wheel in Zheluo's eyes, and the chaos gates turned around Zheluo's body in an instant. A beam of lightning suddenly emerged from the gates, and the power seemed to be enhanced a bit. Tang Mao had expected the lightning beam he hit back. After all, Chaos Mages are just such dogs. However, Tang Mao did not use the method of charging lightning into the body. Instead, at the moment when the lightning beam hit back, he directly used space magic to forcibly dispel it. Then, he called for the Yanji to merge. In an instant, a flame full of burning sensation ignited, and the constellation was drawn. Tang Mao blasted it out in one fell swoop. Sky Flame Funeral. This time, he no longer used the first level high level magic, but the second level Hellfire. As a Hellfire stone gets closer to the ground, you will find that the Hellfire is huge, and the whole stone will even roar like a hellish devil. Zheluo used the Chaos Gate again, looking at Tang Mao and said, "Don't waste your energy. Your destruction magic is useless in front of my chaos magic." While Tang Mao was focusing on Zheluo, the other British team members had already gotten rid of the suppression of space gravity. However, they did not immediately help Zheluo, nor did they choose to help his two summon beasts, but rushed to the outside of CE's rule. Because they have considerable confidence in their captain, the Chaos Gate has almost made him invincible. Tang Mao didn't care about their departure at all. After all, his target has always been Zheluo. It does take some effort to deal with him, but it's just a little bit. Give it back. Zheluo wanted to hit Tang Mao's Hellfire back again, but he soon realized that something was wrong. You don't really think that the chaos system is invincible, do you? You don't really think that all the destruction magic in this world can be targeted? Looking at Zheluo's constipated face, Tang Mao sneered. What a joke. He merged with Yanji and used the high-level second-level Hellfire. Rather, it was mixed with the strong explosive power of the Nine Palaces. Since the battle with Germany, his strength has increased several times. Moreover, the current magic fusion will not be like the first time it was used, and the blue bar will be exhausted after one attack. Hell Nine Palace Fire. Looking at Zheluo who was struggling to operate there, Tang Mao condensed the flame in his hand and said, "Bang bang bang." The next moment, loud noises accompanied by a scene like a volcanic eruption began to explode under Zheluo's feet. Just a single high-level Hellfire, or a mid-level Nine Palaces, may not be a big deal for Zheluo. After all, his chaos system is a steady suppression. But the two magics were fused under Tang Mao's powerful control, and with the help of Yanji's fusion, the power was almost constantly doubling. This kind of condensed and synthesized magic can truly be regarded as a destructive magic of the same level. The power of this explosion can be compared to the impact of a volcanic eruption. Even Zheluo was bombed into the sky. Even though he was wearing top-grade armor and magic tools, he was shattered in an instant. The destructive magic that the chaos vortex could not stop, his magic tools were naturally useless. It's not that his magic weapons and magic tools are inferior, but the explosive power of the magic used by Tang Mao this time can no longer be evaluated as high level. In this case, even the assistant referees who wanted to rescue were stunned. Because this explosive power is no longer something that high-level magic can have. Just when several assistant referees thought that Zheluo was dead, a sudden bang sound came out. Zheluo, who was originally hit by the flames, fell from the mid-air of the sea of fire and hit the ground heavily. Although he was severely burned, after checking, the assistant referees breathed a sigh of relief. At least his life was not in danger. But at the same time, they were also completely shocked. The young man in the air, is he a monster? Question mark? After all, such magic damage that exceeded the budget is not something he can control casually, right? But if it is a coincidence, they obviously didn't believe it. Moreover, the extreme speed of the wind system had already blinded them. In addition, the violent destructive power of the thunder system was unstoppable. And the space magic was indescribably strong. Who would have thought that in the end, he broke through the chaos with the fire system? Question mark? A person who can make one system stand out can already be called a genius. However, several systems are so prominent. This is ridiculous! Exclamation mark. The assistant referee was depressed and took ZHELUO away to heal his injuries. Just 5 minutes after the battle started, Irene and ZHELUO on the British team were eliminated one after another. If Irene was eliminated because of Tang Mao's sneak attack, then can she be called the strongest ZHELUO? He only lasted for a short 5 minutes. At this moment, on the surrounding raised cliffs, tens of thousands of spectators were cheering wildly. After all, before the game started, no one thought that China, the dark horse, could continue to charge forward. But 5 minutes into the game, Tang Mao directly exploded with power that shouldn't be possessed by this realm, and the control of those systems was almost unsolvable. Even ZHELUO, who was previously known as the number one of the younger generation, was completely treated like a father beating his son by Tang Mao. The entire audience was filled with cheers, and in the Chinese seats, Xiaozeng, Han Ji, Pang Lei, Feng Li and others were also surprised that they couldn't close their mouths. Especially Han Ji, he always knew that Tang Mao was very strong. Even he himself might not be his opponent. Of course, this was after he became a demon. However, at the moment, when he showed a nearly super level power with his high level cultivation, Han Ji felt that he might be a little overconfident. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.